Okay, the time is 6 p.m. Today is September the 3rd, Tuesday. Notice is hereby given that the above call meeting of the governing body of the city of Balcones Heights, Texas will be held on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Justice Center located at 3300 Hillcrest Drive, Balcones Heights, Texas 78201, to consider and act upon any lawful subject which may come before said meeting, including among others, the following items to be discussed and acted upon. Let's call to order and recording of a quorum. I see that we have a quorum present. All members are present of the council and the mayor. Invocation and pledges of allegiance to the USA and Texas flag. Who will be doing the invocation this meeting? Okay. Okay, Councilman Burton.
Let's see, what are we doing first here? The pledge? On the invocation, okay. Bow your heads, please. Oh, Heavenly Father, we are gathered here today to form judgments, make decisions that will affect the lives of those committed to our charge. Please give us wisdom and understanding. Guide our decisions, may they be fair, just, and merciful. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag, while pledging allegiance to the Union of Texas.
Thank you, Councilman Burton. I see my mic is picking up really well this time. That's good. Okay, so we're going to move right into the public comment period. At this time, citizens who have filed out a registration form prior to the start of the meeting may speak on any topic they wish to bring to the attention of the governing body, so long as the topic is not on the agenda for this meeting. During citizens to be heard section, no council action may take place and no council discussion or response is required to the speakers. Citizens who wish to speak on a specific agenda item, when that item is called for the discussion, must first fill out a registration form prior to the start of the meeting, indicating which agenda item they wish to address. So let's start with the first. We have Mr. Jimmy Hernandez. Mr. Jimmy Hernandez? Okay, number one. Okay, gotcha. Mr. Charles White. Okay, sounds good. Mr. Tracy Ebersol, budget. Want to wait to the item? Okay, sounds good. Mr. Let me see if I can, Luigi Savgel. How do you pronounce that? Esvalge. And that's also budget. You also want to wish to that. Okay, great. And Mr. Valverde, you want to wait to the business item number one? You want to do that now?
Yes, sir, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
take care of that right
You have.
now. First of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to take this opportunity to apologize and say that I'm very disappointed and disgusted with what's going on in our community and the behavior of our leadership. A couple of weeks ago, a flyer with bogus information was passed out to some residents by an individual accusing me of wanting to outsource dispatch and increase property taxes. For everyone's information, I want to make it clear that I am and have always been totally against outsourcing dispatch. And I have mentioned this at several council meetings in the past years. I've also been against increasing property taxes. Unless there's no other alternative, then I will have to act and vote for whatever is best for our community. I've been accused of wanting to bypass standard and professional hiring practices for the city administrator and city secretary positions. Again, this is bogus information. I am a firm believer in training an in-house individual to take over any position if something unexpected happens. I have always suggested to my colleagues and staff that we must have a plan in place in case something happens or someone quits. I don't appreciate anyone spreading lies about me. You need to stop. Tonight, I'm asking residents to ignore the gossip and attend council meetings or view the meeting recordings on our website to inform yourself with true facts. People who have a business or live in Balcones Heights and criticize council without attempting to offer solutions or run for a council position or just whiners and should be ignored. Now I will close with one of my favorite Bible verses, Proverbs 10:18, which says, whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. Mayor, council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Councilman Valverde, very much for your comments. Okay, and do we have anything else here from anyone else? Okay, none at all there. So let's move right into the business items. So we have a budget workshop for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025. So budget workshop for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025.
Evening, Mayor and council members. I'd like to welcome you to our third budget workshop for your FY25 budget. Take a second to explain what's in your handouts tonight. There's some additional stuff that normally is not there. Of course, you have a copy of the slides that are up on the screen. You'll have a line item budget. That's what you typically have. But usually during this time of the cycle, late in summer, we're going to throw some extra things in there for you that is typically approved in the budget. And so tonight you'll see that you have a proposed holiday schedule in your packet. You have a copy of our investment policy, our purchasing policy, and our fee schedule. Okay, these are typically reaffirmed during the budget process. And so these are included in your packet tonight. There has been
Mr.
no
Massey,
change.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you, I can't hear you too well. Yeah, there you go. If you could just speak a little
Hopefully I won't
louder
get
also.
Too much feedback here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And so with our investment policy and our purchasing policy, there's been no changes. Thank you. There's been no changes to that for a couple of years now, so there's nothing really to talk about with that. Our fee schedule was last passed back in March of this year. Nothing has changed since then. And on our holiday schedule, just like years past, there are 13 holidays on your holiday or our proposed holiday schedule. So all that's in your packet. We can entertain questions on that later if you want. But for now, it's just there to reaffirm it. And these things will be included also in your budget book when that comes out. Yeah. The same look and layout as past slide shows here. We're going to be looking at all of this. Of course, the focus tonight will be on our general fund. Really, the purpose of the slides tonight carry on the theme of what if we were to outsource dispatch. And again, that's what if. And it takes into consideration the fact that this budget does not necessitate us making a decision on dispatch. Obviously, that would come later when we actually had a proposal and some information for you concerning that. But carrying on the thought and council's desire since 2023, we go down this path tonight and say, what if? Okay. Next.
I'm a little confused on that.
Okay.
You're saying what if, meaning that what if
Correct.
we outsource dispatch?
Yes, sir. What if we
So you're
keep it?
going on-
What if we
What
keep it? What if we outsource it? Yes, sir.
So are we passing this budget on a what if or a recommendation to pass it on this?
I'll get to that, but that's a
What
good
if?
point. So the last slide that we will show will have all this information on
Okay.
it. And I'm going to talk about our line item budget and what's going to be presented.
Okay,
So Just bear with me and we'll get there, I promise. But the last slides will open that up for you, I think, and help you understand that. So the overview, basically the big things that you need to know, the budget or the slides that you're seeing tonight shows that your general fund is balanced, and it is balanced by outsourcing dispatch services if we go that route. The proposed tax rate, should we go that route, remains at 0.604. I'll tell you now, regardless of how it goes, that'll be the tax rate. That is our current tax rate. That is not an increase to the city's tax rate. It is maintaining the same tax rate. So every month before we do a budget workshop, I go ahead and tweak the revenues and expense numbers for you. Obviously, in the spring, there's a big variance as far as what the revenues or the expenses could be. But as we get closer towards the end of the year, those numbers start firming up. And I believe the numbers that we have now will pretty much carry over into September, depending on what sales taxes do. But for the most part, I believe these numbers are set. Next slide. And so with that said, all the slides will change. You change one number, all the slides will change. We'll go through all these real briefly because there's no material change to the numbers or what the slides look like. Okay, so total budget revenues from last time have gone up $24,000, and that's mostly all in the general fund. So materially, that this slide still looks the same as what you saw last time. On the budget expense side, budget expenses are down $202,000. A big chunk of that, of course, is what if we do what we do with dispatch. And so that materially, I think the personnel slide last time said 57%. Now you can see it says 54%. That would make sense if you outsource a service, but otherwise the slide looks the same. Personnel cost by fund. Of course, the reason why we're in the situation that we're in this budget cycle is right there in the middle with traffic safety. This year and prior years, 360,000 roughly every year. Payroll expenses was in the traffic fund. That program ended in May of 2024. And so therefore for next year, all those payroll costs and then some get pushed down into the general fund and into the crime control fund. But overall, especially as you would expect if you're outsourcing something, overall payroll costs are down $397,000 since your last budget workshop. And that's a 7% decrease. And that's the first time I've seen payroll decrease. Usually every year. Okay, but then they can't hear me. And so it's unusual to see payroll cost decreases. Usually you're going to see a 4%, 6%, whatever increase. And this year with this, we actually see a decrease in payroll costs. Okay. Personnel costs by function. I think the last time we came together, public safety accounted for 76% of the budget. With this slide, now it's down to 73%, and it does not show dispatch on that. However you'd like, Mr. Burton.
Councilman Burton, you want to have a question? It's however the purview of the council's pleasure. So if you want to do that, then we can do that one by one and address it, or you want to wait till he finishes and then mark where you want to talk. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you. So total debt, again, to reiterate, the WODA partnership, that's our on top there. That is not taxpayer-backed debt. Your series, anything that says series is a tax note. So the series 2021 fire truck and for Vivian, those are tax notes. They are taxpayer-backed debt, which means they will show up on your INS portion of your tax rate. Okay, so the debt is staggered. The series 2020 Vivian tax note will fall off the books next year. And then the year after that, the fire truck will. And that's good to know because we're going to be talking about Hillcrest and how to fund that next. Again, with Hillcrest, this does not preclude us passing a budget. This is just for informational purposes. We know we have to get busy on this after we pass the budget. But the way the debt is set up and structured is that as one debt falls off, we pick up another chunk of the Hillcrest debt. Okay, what we have shown up here is for general obligation bonds to the tune of up to $5 million, and when we would get those and when we would see those payments. So as one drops off, the $74,000 debt would drop off, we would pick up an additional 80,000. As the 116 falls off, then the rest of it, if we go that full amount, would be 240. So it is an increase, but it's stepping it up, if that helps. So for some background for Hillcrest, as Mr. Burton had asked for, and Mr. Burton, thank you so much for calling me and getting that. That really facilitates the meeting. We appreciate when all of you call us and ask the questions up front. So we appreciate that. February is our deadline to have a May election. Okay, so the May election is sending it out to the voters and say, hey, do you give us permission to go out for debt to cover Hillcrest expenses? That's pretty much the latest we can do it, because in TxDOT's mind, construction starts in December of 2025. Okay. Currently, we spent about $300,000 on Hillcrest so far, and all this began back in 2019. I wasn't here, but what I understand, back in 2019, the city approached TxDOT and the MPO with this project. And so they said, yes, let's make it happen. And so we've been working towards that. So from TxDOT and MPO's perspective, this is a done deal. This is going to happen. They're just waiting for us to fulfill our obligations with it, primarily the debt. Okay. So again, we solicited them. They didn't come to us with that. December 2025 is their tentative start date. With TxDOT, it's easy to push back dates instead of bringing them up, which is fine by us. If anything, we would probably want to push that back a little bit. So there's some flexibility there. The total cost of the project is just under 10 million. MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, has pledged 5.246 million towards this. That's 52% of the cost they're willing to pick up. That is pledged. And so just like our other street grants, we do the construction, we do so much, we pay so many invoices, and then we request reimbursement. So it's pledged. We have not received any money yet from the MPO. There is a difference between an MPO grant and a CDBG grant. MPO is more geared towards highway, major thoroughfare road projects. CDBG doesn't do that. They're more residential road projects. And we can't double dip, so we can't have a loan or a grant from both of them. We can only do one or the other, and the MPO is the best option for a major road reconstruction like that. Where the project currently sits, it's finished. I believe it's finished the environmental review, as I hear from, as Mr. Lara has stated. So that's pretty much done. And the next thing would be the design phase review. Okay, after that, they'll do a 30%, a 60%, and then a 90%. And then after the 90%, we're blessed to start. And again, that construction is slated for December of 2025. Obviously, with the funding looking like that, there's some more work that needs to be done on that. But just for the background of where we stand with that is all that's important tonight. A general fund, we said we did tweak revenues and expenses somewhat, so that's going to change the slides. Most of the changes were in the general fund. And so this is a new slide for you, and it kind of summarizes up all the changes that have been made. I figured it would be easier than for me to try to remember everything, so we'll just put it up here on the slide. Your general fund revenue changes are on the left. General fund expense changes are on the right, or my right. Hopefully you're right. And so it's all summarized there for you. Basically, general fund revenues increased $29,500 since our last budget workshop, and expenses decreased $193,994. Obviously, if you're outsourcing something, you're going to see a decrease in expenses. Now, outsourcing, of course, it doesn't mean that there are no dispatch costs. We would have to include a part-time communication position in there. You see that number, 55,000. That's city cost, not salary. And then we would have to add the dispatch contract expense back in. And at this point, we're guesstimating 225. That seems like a pretty realistic number. But again, that's assuming F, and that's and with all those changes, the general fund is balanced. General fund revenues, just slight number changes. Like I said, it only went up 24,000, so this slide is largely the same. And on the expense side, so personnel cost, the last time we came together, that personnel was 79% of your general fund, and now it's at 75. Otherwise, there's no real changes. The capital fund, what's important again to know about the capital fund is that what's going on in the capital fund is it's its own separate fund. It does not affect your tax rate, regardless of what goes on in the tax or in the capital fund, the purchases that are made. It's its own separate fund. Nothing in your M&O is going towards the capital fund. Of course, the capital fund is dependent on sweeps from other funds, and primarily the one from the general fund that we make each March. So whatever's over 3 months of reserves, we typically sweep into the capital fund every year in hopes of building up that big fund balance. Because as you just saw from the Hillcrest, there's a lot of costs coming up for Hillcrest, and some of it will be absorbed in your capital fund. No change here. Again, what we've proposed since budget workshop number 1, the biggest expense this year in your capital fund will be for street projects, primarily for Crestview 2 and some engineering costs, because down, okay. Do we need weaker batteries?
Uh-uh.
Okay. So minor Hillcrest expenses, it's still ongoing as far as on the engineering side of it. Can you hear me? Just need to get taller, right? Thank you. Yeah, stage crew. You would know about that. I'll play with it, guy. Test, 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 test. So your capital fund budget, this year it reflects a slight surplus. I think we have $9,500 surplus in it. This thing will vary every year. You might see a drastic increase one year or a drastic deficit year by year. It all depends on what's going on in that fund. But ultimately, we want to build up that ending fund balance. The fund balance you see there now does not consider any sweep that we might make in March. So hopefully we can continue to grow that fund balance, which will help relieve the debt that we would have to issue should we go forward with Hillcrest. Special revenue funds are the special fence funds that are for specific purposes. We have 16 total. Of course, the Traffic Safety Fund. Of course, this program ended in May of this year, and it's a big reason why we're going through a lot of the stuff that we're going through in this budget cycle or that we're discussing. You see from 23 and years prior, we would get about $1 million of revenue in from the Traffic Safety Fund. After we paid a big chunk of that to the vendors and to the state of Texas, we would be left with about $450,000 of useful revenue. And from that, we funded 3 police positions and we paid the city streetlight bills. Of course, with that gone now, all that gets folded into the general fund. Deficit spending hasn't changed a little bit. We'll walk through those real fast. Next slide, Ms. Lisa. So in your Economic Development Corporation, of course, we're recording the loan expense, but no revenue coming in on the partnership distributions on the revenue side. Economic Incentive Fund, we have taken out the CPS portion of the franchise fee from the Economic Incentive Fund this year and put it into the general fund to help balance that. So we're on a deficit in the Economic Incentive Fund. Same for the Streets Fund. Last year, we stopped the transfer from the general fund into the Streets Fund to help balance the general fund. We continue with that again this year, thus the deficit spending. Forfeitures Fund, this is planned deficit spending. This has been a dead fund for a few years now since we don't participate in that anymore. And so we're proposing to spend all that out and close it down this year. Your largest special revenue fund is your Crime Control District. It's been tweaked a little bit, but it's still balanced and with a pretty good healthy fund balance. Hotel, same for them. It's been tweaked. Hotel revenue is trending downwards, but we still have a very healthy fund balance here and a balanced fund. Your proprietary funds would be your sewer and stormwater, and they're like business type enterprise funds, and so they're accounted for a little bit differently. But for your sewer fund, next slide. Yep. So you see it's balanced, of course, and a really healthy fund balance. And we primarily take a lot of money out of here, transfer it out into the capital fund. Same for stormwater, balanced and a pretty healthy fund balance. Okay, speeding along here, let's go to the where we are in the property tax timeline. Of course, so next or on September 23rd, we meet in regular council. We'll have the same slideshow tweaked, and we will vote to approve the budget and set the tax rate on September 23rd. That's what we're set for now. Definitions, just the top three again, your taxable value, that's sort of like your market value. It's your appraised value, less exemptions. And it's pretty much what drives your property tax bill every year. As that goes up, your property tax bill is going to go up, even if the city were to lower or keep the same tax rate. That's what's driving it. The two components of your tax rate are the INS and your M&O functions. INS is always calculated first. The state values paying the debt first. INS is interest and sinking. It pays those tax notes that we showed earlier. That's what's paying that. That's being paid out of Fund 36, your debt service fund. Your M&O is maintenance and operations. It is the portion of your tax rate that goes into the general fund, the fund general city operations. These two are combined. They are inversely proportional, meaning that if your debt goes up and you want to keep the same tax rate, then your M&O portion has to go down. Likewise, if your debt goes down, then there's more money available to the M&O side if you wish. Okay, so let's go ahead. Historic values, of course, everything is always going up, right? We had that one coming out of COVID year, 2021, where property values went down a little bit, but otherwise, it's always increasing for the most part. Last year, our value for the city was $350 million. $360 million this year is about a 2.8% increase over what it was last year. And again, that's your biggest driver on your tax bill for the city portion. Historic tax rates for the city. The city has consistently tried to maintain a consistent tax rate and just let those market value increases generate the additional revenue. And that's a pretty good strategy. For a number of years, it was a 0.583. Last year, it was 0.604. And this year, we're recommending to maintain, not to raise the tax rate, but to maintain the tax rate that we had last year of 0.604. The revenue required. So we start out with what we have to pay back on the debt side first. $193,000 next year. You divide it by that big $360 million number, times it by 100, and you get that tax rate of 0.05, or basically 5 cents per $100 of valuation. On the general fund side, you need 1.984. Divide it by that big number and times it by 100, and you get roughly 55 cents per $100 of evaluation. You add it all up, and that's your proposed tax rate of 0.604. Again, this is a good slide to look at. Now, imagine you see the debt service up there for 193,000. Imagine now if you double that. What if you made that 380,000? Okay, then all of a sudden your INS rate is going to go up to 1 cent or 10 cents from 5 cents. But the amount of money that you have available in your general fund is going to go down 193,000. That's just to show the relationship between the two. Hopefully that's a better visualization of how that works. Okay, so where does our tax rate fall in relationship to our floor and our ceiling? We kind of say that the no new revenue rate would be your floor, your voter approval rate would be your ceiling. You want it closer to the floor, obviously. And we're about within a penny of the floor, and we're about 4 pennies off from the ceiling. So that's sitting really nicely where it needs to be. Of course, with your voter approval rate, any tax rate proposed over that would automatically trigger an election and would have to be voted on to be accepted. This is always provided by the county for us. Maintaining the same tax rate, the average house will see an increase of $96 on the city side of their tax bill this year. Yeah. Tax rate comparison, no change since last time. 0.604, one of the higher ones. And this is obviously reflects the number of services that the city provides for its residents. Typically, the city leverages about 20 to 25% of the tax bill. All these other entities are going to really have the primary control over what the tax bill is going to do, and especially the school districts there. Who's paying the taxes? Commercial, or your businesses and your multifamilies picking up 90% of the tax rate or the tax bill. On the residential side, it's about 10%, give or take, every year. So the businesses and the multifamily apartments, of course, they can pass that on, that cost on to the consumer. But the city is protected with numerous state and city exemptions as well. Okay, almost there. The summary, same as the beginning. These slides reflect the fact that the city's general fund is balanced. It says, what if we did that by outsourcing dispatch services? The proposed tax rate with this budget remains unchanged at 0.604. Next to the last slide here, just a reminder that we do vote on the budget and proposed tax rate on Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. during regular council. We'll throw these same slides up there briefly, and then you guys will do your thing. Okay, so we said what if. And so this had been requested last time, I believe, by maybe Councilman Lasea or maybe Councilman Sines.
All right, clarify that. What did you say, Mr. Messick? This was
Yes.
requested by whom?
Yeah, I believe this
Having
was,
a very hard time hearing you.
yeah, I know this thing keeps squealing.
Speak very low.
And so this was requested, I believe, by Councilman Sines last time. What would a budget look like if we did do that versus what if we didn't? And so following that train of thought, this is what you have here this evening. And so on the left side, it says, well, what if we keep dispatch? What would that look like? And on the right side, what would it look like if we outsourced dispatch? What would that look like? So on the left side, dispatch cost $437,000 for the year. We would throw that into the budget. That would increase your general fund expenses. And we would have a general deficit of about $200,000 or $198,000. To solve that deficit, if you just wanted to increase the tax rate and do nothing else, we would propose a tax rate of 0.660. That, of course, would be over the voter approval rate, and we would not recommend that at all. If outsourcing dispatch, well, you would get rid of obviously the $437,000 of expenses, but you would still have some squealing. I good? Just leave it there. And so the dispatch cost would go away, but we would actually include some dispatch costs for you. We would have to have 225,000 added back in. Thank you. For the dispatch contract, that's an estimate. We would have $55,000 for a part-time communications position. That's the city portion, not the salary. And so with that, your general fund deficit would be zero, and you would have a balanced budget. And you could keep your tax rate 0.604. We'll work through it. But the assumption there, and what we need to point out, is that last little asterisk down at the bottom. All of that assumes that we outsource dispatch on 1 October of 2024. And we know that that's not going to happen. we still have to bring a contract over, you all have to debate it. So this budget is in essence really not dependent on what you do with dispatch. We certainly don't need a decision on that tonight. And what we're trying to do in this process is simply present to you a balanced budget, right? And so what I do know, I don't know if we're going to be outsourced by 1 October, probably not. But I do know come 1 October, I'm going to have to pay dispatchers until a decision is made. And so legally, I can't pay them unless that expense is in the budget. And so the budget that we have that's been handed out to you, the paper copy, reflects a budget that keeps dispatch. It is still balanced. We take care of that deficit of $198,000 by keeping the freeze on the sergeants and the corporal's position that is currently frozen. So by maintaining that, we can put dispatch into the budget. It doesn't mean that you can outsource it. It doesn't mean you will or you won't, but you have the flexibility. You have a balanced budget. So hopefully all that made sense. And at this point, I'll open it up to questions. And because I know it's kind of confusing, so because you got this slide, but you got a budget that's balanced. What's going on there? Again, we're just throwing full dispatch cost into your line item budget. That doesn't preclude you from outsourcing dispatch. If you decide to do that later, we would just amend the budget to what you see there on the right, and it would still be balanced, still the same tax rate. In order to balance the budget, we freeze those police positions, and you're basically balanced. And so it's a good either way budget. I'll just leave it at that and open it up for questions.
Before we have any council input, let's go ahead and go through these citizens that want to be heard. This way, the council has an opportunity to hear all input from citizens before they make their decisions or any kind of comments they'd like to make. So let's start with Mr. Charles White, dispatch, since that is a subject that just got discussed. Former Councilman Charles White, 211 Leisure.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I do have a question about this dispatch cost comparison. The chief said he'd still need a couple of personnel to take care of the impound fund. Has that been figured in already? As personnel?
This is just really a citizen comment that we're doing later in the meeting, so we really can't respond unless it's something.
I was just going to say that.
Or something.
Yeah, I was looking at my
Anyway.
public comment period. So just
That would be a.
comment what you need to, Mr. White.
So your dispatch cost, is that for them to take over? And also, are you going to get charged anything per call? I don't know. So the dispatch cost, and also looking at the fact that if the chief's going to need a couple of people to take care of impound, then it's all facts and figures, how you look at it. But personally, I want dispatch to stay. And I know citizens have been asked. Of course, it depends on how you ask citizens, but it'd be very important for council members to get up and go talk to the businesses. And one thing about police calls or fire calls or EMS calls, what happens during the peak hours when events happen? If we have our own dispatch, I'm confident everything will be responded to in a timely manner. But there again, if we're going through Bexar County, I don't really know. The other question, has anybody talked to any other cities that have given up their own dispatch and are now using Bexar County? Get a sounding board. But anyway, I appreciate your time. And I thank you very much.
We have Jimmy Hernandez, who would like to speak number one on budget workshop. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, fellow citizens. I do have a quick question, if I may. Mr. Messick, I think you said there at the end that you could do a balanced budget, keeping dispatch besides, going outsourcing. What was that solution?
Mr. Hernandez, the only problem is that it's the same rule that applies earlier that our council said. None of the employees are, unless, is there, Adam, differently, it'd be the same rule, right?
Yeah,
No one can actually comment.
generally it's limited to like fact questions, like if someone asked, what day something was happening.
Yeah.
Something like basic info, but as far as discussion goes, but now if someone raises a question and one of you wants to ask it, you can certainly do that. and
Okay.
Answer that one.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Mr. Hernandez. I just
Well,
want to make sure
it
we're
it
good.
sounded like he had an alternative
sir.
solution, but I couldn't quite hear him, so.
Okay,
But okay, I'll leave that for a city council member to ask if they choose so. Um,
go ahead and ask
Oh.
him that.
Correct,
I
Adam?
I was saying it's Austin. Austin. Beck.
Austin,
If-
excuse me,
if-
not Adam.
if a citizen in their comments raises an issue that you all want to then ask for more information about, you can certainly do that.
Meaning the council members
The council
individually,
members.
not him. Okay, good. Okay.
Well, y'all heard my question, so if y'all choose to ask, that's up to you guys. I had another question and, maybe you guys can answer this, but is there a timeline or a deadline? That's what I'm worried about with the dispatch decision. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say what I want to say. I want to start with the story, and I'll try to be brief, but I'm sure everybody's heard of Henry Ford. And way back in the day, there was a politician, not a politician, a journalist that published an article that was rather derogatory about Mr. Ford and his education, and basically the summarize, the article was saying that Henry Ford was an idiot. And he took offense to it, and he actually hired an attorney, and they sued that journalist. And it was a big thing back in the day. They went to court. And I find what was amazing in that is that, the defense, they had all these experts come in. They had engineers, and they had, mathematicians, they had physics. And they were asking him and drilling Henry Ford all these questions to prove that he was not an educated man. And Henry's response was simply, you know what? I don't need to know all of that information, because I hire experts. I hire professionals that will bring me the answers and the solutions, and then I can make an informed decision. And so where I'm going with that, city council and mayor, is I know that we have the finance manager and the city administrator about to, I guess you can say, leave service. But I really highly recommend that, you guys do a good job at making a good decision and hiring a professional and expert, because surely it cannot come down to either farming out dispatch or reducing salary. Maybe an expert, maybe another view can come up with a solution, and then you guys can take that expert opinion and make a decision on it instead of, fighting amongst each other. So that's my recommendation. I'll say this: if there is no other solution, I think the path of least resistance, right? So, how many people would it affect to reduce all the salaries? Or if we just, cut dispatch, how many people does that affect? I'm all for keeping dispatch. I don't want to lose dispatch, but I think in the end, we have to have the best result, right? So I'll leave that up to you guys to make that decision. I do want to reiterate what Charles White asked is, like, has anybody checked with Leon Valley to see how their response time has changed, if it has? And let me see here. And that's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. So the next citizen we have is Luigi. Mr. Luigi?
How are you guys doing today? I'll be honest, guys. That was a lot. I felt like you went through it pretty well, but I'm sure a lot of people in the room probably didn't take everything in. I know I saw the mayor stand up at one point, walk outside and do some fidgeting with some papers. He was probably not as interested as we hope he would be. Since I moved back here from Los Angeles and we had this election, I've had now 3 letters show up to our house. The whole time Suzanne was mayor, we had 0 letters show up to our house. That seems like a problem, right? Like we could all agree, if the citizens in our community are standing up, even a council member is coming to our house, delivering letters, there has to be some sort of problem. We could probably all agree on that. So I'm wondering, what are we gonna do to fix that, right? It seems like everybody here is more worried about personal reputation or holding power or some other things, but nobody really wants to come up with an actual solution. I understand dispatch is a very specific thing, but when you look at the budget, it looks like it only takes away, what, a couple of $1,000, and maybe there's another way that we could budget it out, like this young man just said. Maybe there's another solution if we bring somebody who actually knows how to budget things out. I don't know if I can ask this, Mr. Garza, but how many of the council members have a formal business degree that you guys could tell us about, or a degree in political science? You guys would raise your hands and let us know. I don't think I can, but it's an interesting question to ask, right? Are you guys actually fit to, figure this out? Or are you guys just kind of sitting there and hoping that the solution will just drop from the sky if you pray hard enough? I pray all the time, but I'm just wondering, because I sit here listening and this is my first time ever being here, but it doesn't seem like you guys really have a strong fit of what's going on. And reading this letter by Mr. Sines, it kind of opened my eyes that there's the possibility that the city might become part of Bexar County if we don't do this right in 2025. If that's true, I don't know if that's accurate, but if it is true, I mean, that's kind of disappointing. I've lived in this community, I grew up here 14 years before I went out into Los Angeles to start my career, but my parents still live here, and I don't want them without police. I don't want them without, fire. I don't want them without public works. They live here. This is where they want to die eventually. This is their home. So if there's the possibility that our city might disappear because you guys aren't making the right decisions, maybe we do need to bring somebody else that knows what to do or can think outside the box, think differently. And that's just all I'm trying to put out there. Not trying to criticize you, not trying to make you feel bad. It's a professional forum. You guys are professionals, and I hope you guys will think like them. Thank you.
Well, I really like that last guy's questions. Do you own a business? Do you own a business? Do you own a business? Does anybody own a business? Can anybody make a business decision? I mean, you run your households. I know that. You have jobs. I own a business. I've been in Balconies Heights since 2000. I run a business. The apartment next door, yes, it's been a crack house. It's been a prostitution house. It's been a whorehouse. I mean, I already said that. And it was all tied into the last police administration. And one of his men, the guy got shot and killed right across the street from me at about 8 o'clock at night. 6 shots, bam, 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 bam. The dude was dead. About 400 policemen were across the street. I watched it. I had people from that apartment complex say, "Do you got any drugs? You got anything of value in your apartment?" And that's when I went and talked to the police right away. I also had a guy that came by every day, would break into my trash can, steal everything. He also used to rip out my plumbing like every couple months because he used to hide his drugs in my flower bed. And when I turned the sprinklers on, the guy ripped out my plumbing. This stuff isn't something to talk about. You ought to be ashamed of yourself to get rid of the dispatch. This is horrible. I find it abhorrent. I think if you can't make the tough decision and cut budget, you can't do it, then you get out of the system. Get out of the pot. If you can't say you need a salary, we need to lay off some people. I've hired and fired lots of people. It's not easy, it's not fun, but you know what? I'm still in business after 30, almost 40 years now. And I don't like going through a phase like this, but we just have to go through it. And you got to make the hard choices. Are you man enough to make the decisions to say, no, we're not going to pay you anymore? We're going to lay off 4 people? You're going to look at the hard things, make the hard choices? The police are not the place to cut the salary. We need protection. If there's other people, if you want me to start naming names, I'll tell you who needs to go. I can get another businessman over here myself. He's running companies 5 times bigger than this. Give it on board. If you want some help cutting people or rearranging the salary, ask a man who's already got a couple million in the bank. And not somebody who's just sitting here wishing they knew something. Ask somebody who's run business, who's made those hard choices. It's not right. It's not right what you're doing. And I will say this, since we're quoting scriptures once in a while. Galatians 4:16. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? I'm telling you, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Ebersol. And I think that concludes all the citizens to be heard. For good or bad, I want to tell everybody that came up and all the citizens that have been coming up for citizens to be heard, thank you very much for providing your input to us very much.
I guess. And Mayor, I believe we're still on business item number 1. And so, and I know there were some questions that council members may have, but again, let me reiterate, the line item budget that you have in your packet is a balanced budget. It does not raise your tax rate, and it does fund dispatch for the full year. Okay, it does not preclude you from outsourcing dispatch should you choose to do so down the road. That's not going to happen by 1 October, probably not till after January, and only after we bring you a legitimate proposal that you would have time to consider and debate and ultimately vote on. So I just needed to make that clear. With that, any questions?
We'll open it up for questions from council. Councilman Burton, you have the floor.
Thank you. So we're rolling in a 2.7 COLA for all employees, it says on slide number 7.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Does that go to from the CPI that was released just recently, or?
Yes, sir, that's based on what the current COLA estimate from Social Security is, and it's what we have to use for the CBA contract. Yes, sir.
That is what?
2.7%.
It went up 2.7, so that's our.
It actually started higher. It was like in the 3s. It's down to 2.7, and probably it will go lower. And if that's the case, that's more cost savings for the city.
We were talking about a February deadline for a May election for Hillcrest. Is there, if it goes before a public vote, is there a possibility that Hillcrest doesn't get done then?
Oh, absolutely. If the residents say, no, we're not,
Bond.
yeah. And so in that case, then you cannot vote for any other debt on that project for at least 3 years. And so if it fails, it's pretty much on hold for 3 years.
But that doesn't kick us out of their program. It just puts a lock on it for the.
Right. And I think TxDOT and MPO, they've dealt with that before. They understand that, hey, we were willing to go, but it got shot down. So, yeah.
Where are we going to start pulling money out to pay the streetlight fund? Where's that going to come out of?
Yeah, so city streetlights that were paid in the 15 fund are now included in the general fund. Yes, sir.
Paying out of general.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Fund 12. Federal forfeitures. I know we did away with that back a long time ago. Did it produce a lot, in the past, when they would pay or, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole down the line kind of thing.
And that's a subjective thing. Did they pay a lot? Yeah, at times, but there was also expenses, as you know, all the overtime that it cost the city for that had to be weighed against it. And council at the time decided that, it's just not worth the expense anymore. And so we withdrew from the program.
And we could get back in though, if we wanted to, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, Mr. Gillian may be able to, is it worth it? Fund 12, the federal forfeiture? Slide number 24.
It's when the city participated in the DEA program and we would get a certain percentage of all the claims or all the court settlements or stolen property or whatever. And it could be profitable at times. But again, like I said, there was a lot of cost involved in this. At one point, we had a K-9, we had K-9 expenses. We had to pay officer overtime. We had to have a car just for him. And so looking at it overall, there wasn't really that much of a profit ratio. And so it was ultimately voted to end the program.
I mean, a car is kind of the moot point because we got Tahoes now, we used to have.
Or it was a Tahoe back, yes, sir. Mhm.
We also used K-9 too. So it wasn't really a K-9 thing. But, so I guess my question is it worth it, do you think?
May I approach? What was your question, sir?
Is it worth it to try to get back into this?
I don't believe it was. About 7, 8 years ago, we stopped it. And the reason we stopped it, we were paying to put an officer with the DEA and it was costing us 70 to 80,000 a year. And it was never profitable for that dedication to put a person in that. So we called it all back in. I think you may have even been on council then. So we may have gotten about 200,000 or 300,000 out of that thing over a 10-year period, but we were shelling out 60, 70,000 a year.
Basically a wash.
Yes, yes. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gooding.
All I think I marked on here. Other than, it's 60.604. You can go on the other side of Hillcrest and pay 0.5415. That's kind of disturbing to me a little bit. And where are we gonna, on the last page or 21, slide 42? So if you got rid of dispatch, you're losing how many employees? 6? 4?
It would be 7. There's 5 full-time and there's 2 part-timers.
And then what do we got to hire back for impound and all that stuff?
My understanding of that is that that would continue to be a police function with the existing police that we have, but I couldn't speak to that. But I do know that we would hire somebody, like I said, to answer the phones.
Yeah, I think we're staffed enough to answer phones. But that's all that I have here.
Any other council members?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Valverde.
Well, the first question is already answered about showing the budget as the outsourced dispatch. But slide number 5 shows a property tax revenue increase of 3%. Is that because of the Bear County higher property valuations or what is the reason for that?
Yes, sir. That reflects the
that what it is?
2.8%,
Yeah.
roughly 3% increase in valuation. Yes, sir.
And slide number 7, what would be the savings if the step increase was frozen for 1 year? Do you know more estimated, or you need time to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I would have to
Okay.
get back with you.
I'd like to find that out.
Mhm.
Slide number 12, add a part-time communication position for 55,000. Is this position to answer, this is to answer non-emergency calls, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's city cost, that's not the salary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this person is not going to process the requirements for the impound and watch the temporary temporary holding cells, right?
Perhaps, but probably not.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so, because this person's got to be by the phone. I'll ask more questions. That's
Okay.
it for right now, but I'll ask more questions in a
I
few
think
minutes.
Mr. Morales wanted to answer one of your questions.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when you freeze steps, your initial point, remember that not everybody receives steps every year, depending on the number of years that they've been here. So some would be impacted and some would not. So just so you know. So not everybody across the board receives a step every year.
Okay, thank you.
And also, Mr. Valverde, to add to that, of course, it's built into the cops contract, the CBA, that they will get their steps regardless. So,
As I know, we can't do anything with contract. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Mr. Valverde, that's it? Anybody else? Any other council member?
I do.
Councilman
Yeah.
Sea?
Mr. Messick, we had mentioned freezing police positions. Are we looking at freezing as part of this package, freezing any police position?
I'm afraid to talk with all the mics on. But yes, sir. Currently, we have a freeze in place. We have a retirement in the a police sergeant that's retired and a corporal that's moved on. So that's already frozen this year. And that would just carry over into FY25 to help defray the cost of keeping dispatch. And of course, at any time, if you say, okay, we are going to outsource dispatch, then we could unfreeze those positions if you decide to go that way.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Sea. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I forgot.
No, Councilman Valverde, you have the floor again. Go ahead.
I'm just, I'd like to make some, I'd like to comment on possible ways to save money for the city.
Go right ahead.
And I want to make it clear, I'm not saying this is what I want to do, or this is what we need to do. I'm just making recommendations to the council. Maybe some of these things we can, maybe we can't do them. But anyway, well, the first question, DEA funds, we're not getting any more of those, right? Zero.
Yes, sir. That's what we're budgeting for.
Okay. So I was just thinking that maybe by putting a temporary hold on promotions, which I don't think there'd be too many promotions in 1 year. But anyway, I was thinking about that could save some money. I don't know how many promotions are coming up this year. But, and I was also thinking about step increase, holding it for 1 year. And I know it's going to impact some people. I was thinking of the cost of training and travel, to freeze that, except for the mandatory training for the PD and the fire department, or any other mandatory retirement. I know we cannot hold those, but I don't think staff and council have any mandatory training that cannot wait for 1 year. This might be another way to save money. A while back, there was a lot of police officers concerned about losing the comp time. And I made a suggestion, I don't know, it might have been 6, 8 months ago, that maybe there was a possibility to coordinate with the Police Officers Association to see if they're willing to open the contract and negotiate to bring back the comp time. This would satisfy the police officers who stated they would like to have the comp time versus the overtime pays, and also relieve the impact of approximately $80,000 in the general fund. And the last I heard is that the POA didn't have a president, So nothing ever happened. So that might be another possibility of something we can look at. Another thing I was thinking, maybe do some research to see if it's cost effective to contract the street and park maintenance services versus having two full-time employees. This might save money on personnel salaries, benefits, and equipment maintenance and costs. Another thing that I was thinking about is, follow the ordinances and start implementing fines for non-compliance. This would create some revenue. Start impounding junk vehicles on public streets and properties. This will generate revenue and keep our community clean. I was thinking about temporarily hold the telephone allowance for council members and all employees. This will save approximately $5,000 from what I saw on the budget here somewhere, unless I misread it. Possibly revise some titles for possible less pay. Look into the possibility of implementing a charge for excessive calls to multi-family units. I've read somewheres about a city that can charge, that do charge a fee for excessive police calls to multifamily housing. I don't know if we can do this or not, but this might be something we can investigate. Let's see. Investigate it, check and see if it's possible to cut 2 full-time employees and utilize part-timers and keep a supervisor and 2 dispatchers instead of having 5 people. The PD has 6 corporal positions. There are 2 lieutenants, 3 sergeants, 6 corporal, and 6 officers. Is it really necessary to have 6 corporals? We need to look at what's the difference in pay between a corporal and an officer. That might save some money there too. And another thing is, why does our city have to stay comparable with cities that have greater revenue sources? During the budget period, the city tries to keep salaries compatible with other surrounding cities. I can see the PD because of the activity going on in our city, but how can we keep up with staff salaries when our city has a low end of revenue compared to other cities? Again, these are just ideas that you might want to think about, maybe do some research and see what we can come up with. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Valverde, for those recommendations and observations. Anyone else? Councilman Garcia?
Real quick, just to reiterate or just to mention, I have reached out to the city of Leon Valley and met with Dr. Cardera, I think her, on their recent outsourcing of dispatch. Very knowledgeable. She gave me a lot of information. We have another meeting set for next week. And I asked for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So she's going to provide me everything. So I want to know. Right now, the biggest thing she said that she had was the residents that were upset when they would call that there was a dog in the greenway attacking the deer. When they went to the metro, they lost that intimate line of communication. She said that has been their biggest complaint from the residents, that they lost the intimacy, but the response time, she says, is still going on. So she's going to provide me numbers on the response times on all that information. So just for knowledge, I am following up with the city of Leon Valley and looking for another city to get more information. Thank you.
Councilman, let's say, what was the name of the person you spoke to over there?
Dr. Cabrera?
He's a councilman there?
No, she's a city administrator.
She's the city administrator, okay. Great. And the biggest issue was that she said was the citizens, right? Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, yeah.
We have a follow-up meeting just to get more information.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Yes, Councilman Sellers?
Maybe a question for the chief, please. Page 2, you said you downgraded a PD sergeant position to corporal. Was that particular person in question on the news? On that incident? There was not?
No, sir. The current investigation, it involves 3 people, one particular that actually initiated the traffic stop. But at night, what we did in lieu of a sergeant, instead of having 3 sergeants, we replaced with a corporal. So
Okay.
to try to do overall cost savings.
All right, well, that's all I have for that.
Yes, sir.
Then on page 6, just out of curiosity, the Wonderland rent increase, how many units and what percent was increased?
Mr. Morales? You have an answer? He was wondering how many units have it had rent increases? I think is what he's asking. Is that
Right.
correct?
We're asking about the.
Yeah, you
Wonderland.
said Wonderland rent increased 24,000.
Yes, sir.
Can you
That's,
explain that?
yeah, that's the space that we had over there where Mr. Nastasi and Ms. Spence were co-located with the senator. The senator had expressed interest in a larger space over there. And so the senator wanted, so the senator negotiated a newer contract for a higher cost. So that's the $24,000 increase to us.
So that wasn't individual locations that you increased rent on? No.
Oh, it's just an expansion of the property that they're using. We used to co-locate with the senator. When Lorenzo moved and Mary Spence moved over here, it opened up an opportunity for them to expand. So they took the additional space and they're paying the additional rent now for that space.
Okay, okay. And how the rental property registration increased. Usually, I think it was $100 a year. What did that increase to?
Floyd. So we added $5 additional per unit per apartment, specifically for the same reason that Mr. Valverde brought up, because of the number of calls that we have to apartment complexes. So in order for us to defray some of the costs of going and responding to the high number of calls from apartment complexes, we increased the rental registration per unit. So
Per unit, so that's a pretty substantial increase.
well, I mean, I think it's, what's the number, Floyd?
It went up 8,000. Now, part of that was because the estimate was low that we started with. We realized we had more units
Right.
that we were charging for. And so it looks like a bigger increase really than what it was.
Actually,
But it's,
I think it's a pretty good decision, personally. My next question is on page 10. It says that the streetlights, the cameras that we had funded 3 police positions.
yes, sir.
Were we short 3 before we had cameras? And did we remove the 3 when we lost the cameras?
The latter, no, we did not remove them after we've lost red light cameras program. They've been added to the general fund. As far as what it was before cameras, that was before my time. I don't recall.
So we had cameras and we used that money to fund 3 police positions. We lost the cameras and retained the police.
Yes, sir.
So that was added expense that should have never incurred. Ever.
It was an expense in 24 that carries over into 25. Yes, sir.
Okay. Next question on page 15. Stormwater. Operations and maintenance of the city's stormwater and drainage system. Does that include our drainage here in Balcony Heights?
Yeah.
The stormwater, or is that underground?
Both.
Both?
'Cause ultimately, it all leads to the sewer.
Okay,
it's
so
above ground
if it's
stormwater.
our drainage ditches
Correct.
and you're showing that it operates in maintenance of city stormwater, does that include the debris and grass and trees and brush that grows up from the back of a residence to the ditch, that little 2-foot area that's never maintained?
For maintenance, I would say that's more on the public works side. What this fee does is.
It's part of the maintenance of that ditch, though. You've got tree
Right.
roots growing in through the concrete and
Correct.
it's got to be maintained.
And stormwater ultimately ends up there. But what the stormwater fee is doing is businesses with large parking lots, impervious cover, all that rainwater runoff is going into our sewer systems. And so that's what that fee is. And that's what we're looking at with this fund. Not necessarily are we cleaning out the ditch.
The last question is on 18, where you have a voter approval rate 646,510 and proposed rate. You said the voter approved rate. Did the voters approve this? Did we vote on a raise increase?
No, these rates are provided by the county. And the voter approval rate is sort of like the highest that you can go before it
Yeah.
triggers the election.
Okay.
That's not something that we propose.
So I just mistook it. We approved that rate.
Oh, no, sir. No, our proposed rate is hopefully what we will approve. You can approve anything in between.
All right. Thank you for clarifying those.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Just a couple of, so on the last page, the comparison. There. So the outsourcing dispatch, we have it balanced right now by having 2 police positions not be filled. Is that correct,
Frozen.
my understanding?
Frozen, yes. Sir.
Yeah, they're frozen, so we're not hiring those positions that are, okay. My question is to Chief Jahanara, what kind of impact does that have on our police readiness? Are we having to have other officers come in on overtime to fill those shifts from those other open positions?
Impact, Councilman Sines, not really feeling the impact because we're always going to have the shifts covered, but you're going to see an increase in overtime. So that's for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, because we're short those positions. So, but it'll cover from top end to bottom end, what I mean from the beginning. So one officer will have to stay over a couple of hours, and then an officer will have to come in a couple of hours. So, and then with sick, we have a couple officers not feeling well recently, and just with vacation and accommodating all of that, incorporate it all together.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to say one more thing about
Go ahead.
the dispatch contract expense. I see that the expense is going to be $225,000 per year. The dispatch is costing the city right now $437,000 per year. The cost for a part-time position plus the contract is going to be approximately $280,000. That's a difference of 156. If you must hire 2 people for part-time communication at 55,177, outsourcing the dispatch is only a savings of $100,000.
We would that's only one position.
One position
City costs
for
55.
non-emergency.
And if we need 3 people to work part-time, that's their budget, no more than that.
So 55 is a budget for 1, 2, or 3 people.
Part-timers, yes. sir.
Okay, all right, I got it. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, one more time. I wanted to ask Mr. Hunter, did we address the question that you had asked? All right, thank you.
Councilman Burton, did you have something?
Well, I've been reluctant to say it, but I guess I'll have to say it. What's involved in trying to do away with the collective bargaining agreement?
Okay.
It's a contract, so, it's been approved and, both parties would have to agree to disband it. Otherwise, if the council chooses, they would have to go to the voters to have it, eliminated at that point. But right now, because it's a 5-year contract, both parties have to agree to do away with it.
And when does that contract come?
We're in the 2nd year of the contract.
Okay.
So you got 3 more years. I know that next year you open it up under the provisions of the contract and council has to agree to open it up to review salaries again. and make sure that they're comparable with other jurisdictions. But that's an agreement between both parties. But that's the only window you have between now and the end of the contract to open it up, unless, like I said, there's mutual agreement between both parties.
And how much of a vote does that take on the citizens' part?
I'd have to research that, sir. I'm not certain.
Do you know by chance, Lamar? How much of a vote does that take from,
You want-
from citizens
Go
for the
ahead,
collective
Councilman.
bargaining?
I mean,
What
former
was the
councilman
question again?
Gideon.
How much of a vote does it take from the citizens? What do they have to win by?
You're asking me a question that an attorney has to answer.
Okay,
It's-
thank you.
Sorry.
It'd probably be 50+1. I mean, you just need the majority of people to vote for it. It's not like a council vote. It's just the population votes, whoever wins, whoever gets the most votes gets a win. So,
Well, I was unclear because I was told that it had to be a percentage of what it was voted in with or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this either, but we can certainly look into that and
Okay.
get you an answer. I'll let Frank know.
Yeah, you may be talking about what it would take, what kind of petition it would take, how many people would have to petition to be able to get it on the ballot. That may be what you're thinking about. And I don't know what that answer is.
I think that would put fire and police on a level scale. That would, I'm just spitballing here. I'm not saying do it, but that would put us on a level playing field, with all employees.
Anyone else? So I've been listening to everyone's input. I've heard the citizens, I've had numerous calls from citizens about the dispatch outsourcing, that they don't want that to occur. What my observations have been is pretty clear in my letter to the citizens on the state of the city. The city is practicing historically a practice of not very sound fiscal management. And I think that the Department of the Finance is also practicing that. And I don't think it's good, because if you look at what we have a total budget revenue. Right now, this is what you provided us. It was in August, you gave us different numbers, and I know it's subject to change. But you have a total budget revenue. Let's just take what you gave us today of $8,886,660. You have total budget expenses of $9,675.08. So the disparity between that number is indicating to me, just on basic accounting principles, you're spending more than what you're bringing in. And I've told you this from the beginning when I first came into this position, that this practice from the beginning, from the, well, let's just say the practice that's been occurring is not very fiscally sound. Because if you're bringing in $1 million, let's just say, why do you need to spend $1,300,000? It just doesn't make practical sense. You should be spending less than what you're bringing in. And you should be putting that money aside and using it to defray costs, like maybe reduce the property taxes for our citizens, maybe provide a service of free trash service so they don't have to pay that bill at the end of the month. They get a free trash service. The city picks that up off of the gain that it makes by saving money. And so if you look at, and the citizens will be able to see this when it goes out in the newsletter, I mean, when the newsletter gets sent out. But you can see, and I have talked to so many professionals about this, the exorbitant cost of our salaries are way too high. For a city our size, it's unsustainable, very unsustainable. The amount of employees are way too high for our city, way too high. And so I have seen no historical evidence from the past to the present that that type of practice has not been curtailed. As a matter of fact, it's excelled more. The more money we get, the more money you spend. It's evident in the last crime control meeting that we had, in the very first one, to propose and adopt the budget. You had I think it was 100,000 more coming in, or a million, I think you had coming in, and you spent 30,000 more. What the city is not doing, and this is not fiscally sound, it's not planning for a catastrophic event, something like a virus that comes forward. All of a sudden, we lose our sales tax revenue. And then that's taking reactive action. What the city needs to be doing is needs to start taking proactive action. Let's not wait till the catastrophic event occurs or when something happens like that. Let's be prepared. Let's be prepared for it. And right now, yes, I have been advocating to say that the council needs to make very, 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 it has to make serious decisions on these challenges, and they're hard, but they need to be done because this has occurred through years and accumulation of actions that have led us to where we're at right now. And when you propose a budget like this, you're basically just sugarcoating it because you're saying to the people, we're not going to adopt this budget, but this is how we're balancing the budget. And we're throwing in the outsourcing of the dispatch. But it's up to the council. They don't necessarily need to pass this, but this is what's going to balance the budget. And that, to me, is not a true way to communicate with the public because you're saying things that are not really true. You're saying half of a truth, and that is that the council does have the authorization and they have the ability to say whether they're going to outsource dispatch or not. But you have already put it on paper that says this is what's going to balance our budget. This is balancing. You say we have a balanced budget. That's not a true statement. You don't have a balanced budget because you haven't outsourced dispatch. You haven't addressed the issue whether you're going to do it or not. And why do you look at just dispatch when there are other positions that we could look at? Now, my colleague, Councilman Valverde, has made some very good points. Why do we need to have a duplication of all these employees that we have? Why do we need so many so many of the corporals? Why do we need so many positions of 3 captains, 3 lieutenants, 9 firefighters, plus 40,000 in overtime? My suggestion is exactly what I've said in this city newsletter. You're basically what you're doing right now, even if we pass this budget by doing what some of the recommendations are being said, it's only going to get us again because historically, and I asked you, Mr. Messick, in our last meeting, historically since 2018, I think I mentioned, how many times have we had to work with deficits? And you said since, I think in 2018 or 2015, correct me if I'm wrong, you said it's always been, all those years we've had deficits. So I said to you at that time, then this is a historical practice that y'all have been practicing and it's not working for the city. Because you shouldn't be presenting a deficit at each budget every year. You should not have that problem. We've had plenty of money. We started with $2 million back in 2000. We're up to 8 million because of the Target and the hospital and some of these other venues that came into our city that's increased our budget. And what did we do? We're spending every penny of it and then some. And then, in my opinion, what wants to be done is you want to penalize the citizen with taking away a valuable service that most people moved into the community for because they have that personalized touch. Those dispatchers know us. When we call, they know exactly where that house is at. They know us, and some of them, they know us personally because they've known through the years that this is our community. And so it's a luxury to have that. And I believe that that is not the correct way to address this budget. I think we need to start looking at more important issues like reducing a city administrator's salary of the 206,000, almost 207,000 with benefits. It's unheard of in a small city for somebody to be paid that amount of money. It's unheard of for other salaries that are over $100,000 each one. We can't sustain it. And it's been a practice that I am telling you that is not good for the city. And when you bring these salary surveys to us, you cannot compare them to other cities.
I believe I get the gist of what you're saying, so allow me to respond to some of that, not all of it, if you would allow me. The budget that I have here is your budget.
Yes.
I get my inputs from
Mhm.
council. I don't make up numbers. You tell me what to do, and that's what I present to you. Your general fund, you said 10 million or 8 million, 9 million, whatever we have in expenses.
Eight
The bulk
million,
of
eight
that-
million,
8 million
$886,
and 9
$660
million
in revenues.
expenses, yes.
Mhm.
The bulk of that is in your general fund. It is balanced. All these other funds that are fenced, they're used for other things primarily. This is where we're transferring funds out of into your capital fund so you can complete Crestview, so that you can do Hillcrest. And that's the deficits that you're seeing. Every budget cycle starts out with a deficit because of conservative budgeting. So yes, every year that I've been here, we've started out with deficit budgets and we've brought them into balance. Okay, as far as the rest of the things you're concerned, whatever you direct us to do, that's what we're gonna do. And
Absolutely.
please don't say that this is my decision being made.
I'm sorry, please don't say.
Please don't say this is my decision or that my budget, this is, you're
No,
all-
I didn't say that. Tell me where I said that.
you started out by saying your budget. And then.
No, the
you're
budget
doing
you
this, you're
presented to
doing
us.
this, You're presenting this.
Budget,
you're
the budget you
sugarcoating
presented
that.
to us. These are your numbers, correct? You do present them, you crunch the
present
numbers
them.
and you bring them to us.
Yes, sir, but the
Okay,
input
so-
is based on,
right.
what you tell me to do.
So let's clarify something. This is not your budget. This is the city's budget,
Thank you.
but you prepare it. And we pay you a very good amount of money to do that. We pay you to the tune of, if I'm not mistaken, we're paying you $131,730
No,
with
sir, you're
benefits.
not. You're paying me 100,000. That's the benefit.
Well, you can sugarcoat it if you want. We can go back and forth. This is your full package with benefits, with your TML retirement, everybody. This is everybody's, what it's costing the city. Bottom line is, you can sugarcoat it, but the bottom line is, this is what it's
Mr. Mayor.
costing the city.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay? Excuse me, just one second, Mr. Thayer. So basically what I'm saying is that what we need to stop doing is spending more than what we bring in. Okay? So if we bring in 8,886, 660, then let's not spend 9,675, 808. Let's spend $7,500. And how do we do that? We eliminate some of these salaries, eliminate some of these positions. And this is where the next item that we're going to be discussing and it goes along with what one of our citizens said earlier. We hire a professional, do a compensation study, do a study on the city to determine if we need all these employees and where can we cut, where can we save money? So in the next budget cycle, you don't experience that again. And you get in the practice of spending less than you're spending right now. Reduce your expenditures, reduce your overhead, and continue to take in the revenue and put that away and put it to use to help the citizens. And the way I mentioned earlier, where you can give them some benefits, where you can get, they don't have to pay their trash service, their property taxes go lower. So I'm still want to go because I want to talk about this real quick. So basically, when you say that in your slide that the statement slides are pretty much more the same as the last month is not correct. Because in the reflected, you had a budget deficit of 223,414 that you mentioned. And then you had on the total budget revenues you presented to us on August the 5th, 2024, you said we had a total amount of 266,573 where it says other under the first page under total budget revenues. You have 282, 232 with a 3%. In your 8.5, you have a 266,573. So there's a difference of 15,659 there. Then you have a total amount of revenues of 886,660, and you have a total amount that you presented to us of 886,281. That's a $24,279 difference. Your total budget expenses, you have 9,877,943. And then in the August, you presented the 96,75,608, which is a $202,335 difference. It's a huge difference in your numbers. So I do see that there are some number changes that are going on there that the average person will not know what it really means. But the bottom line is we're spending more than we're bringing in, you see? And that's not a good practice to have. So as mayor, I advocate that we do need to make different choices besides dispatch. We should be looking at other areas that I mentioned earlier. I do have those suggestions and I do have those cuts that I could recommend, but it's the council's purview to do so. They have to come up with an idea and they have to tell the citizens as to exactly how they're going to save the city money and not repeat this practice in the next cycle again. And so I have some suggestions that we can make, and I've been trying to help to bring other suggestions. So if we start a warrant department, we need to start collecting warrants. We have $4 million in warrants. I implemented this practice and collected almost $2 million in warrants when I was the mayor in 2000. I took that initiative. I went on TV with the police force. We did a commercial. We came out on TV and said, we're going to collect these warrants. And the officers went actively out there and collected these warrants. We collected at least half of it. So there's $2 million that we can utilize right there. So my suggestion is we start a warrant department full-time. We get contracted like the gentleman we had collecting warrants before that was eliminated and his services were no longer used. He was bringing in, to my understanding, close to $100,000 in warrants, or he was making about $100,000 in warrant. He was bringing in a lot more than that, but he was making, that's what he was making on his commission. We need to reactivate that again. Get that guy to come back or somebody like him. Then get our officers that want to do overtime. Instead of billing us for overtime, let them make their money on the commission on some of these warrants that we have out there in conjunction with Linebarger collection efforts as well. The second thing I think we should do is we need to start a reserve program. Let's get those reserves back up so we don't have overtime anymore. And when there's a shortage of officers, when they resign, when they are out sick, let's get these reserve officers. Let's build them up to at least like we had before. We had 10, 12 reserve officers. Let's get those officers on the street, chief, and get them to start building. You build your reserve department and get that going, because that will take up the slack of any of those, downtime with officers missing, resigning, whatever it may be that happens to them. We have a reserve program. These officers can come in and fill in the gap. And so that would be good. I think we get started with that.
We've always opened our doors to a reserve program. Currently, we have two, and they do fill in, like you said, when officers need time off or we have officers that are out. The thing is, in the past, prior to 2010 to 2015, we paid our reserve officers. I don't know all the working parts of it, but I know there was a lawsuit filed. I'm not sure if Mr. Messick can speak on that, but apparently we were working the reserves over the, I guess, part-time threshold, which is probably over 30 hours.
Right.
To my best of knowledge. So the city had to pay out everyone that was going over that.
Yeah.
I know at that point in time, we stopped paying our reserve officers. It just seems like that from that point on, I wasn't upstairs. I was in the, I call it in the trenches with the officers. We saw our reserve officers go from 20 to 25 at that time to other cities to where they were going to get compensated, because the biggest thing for reserve officers is they need someone to hold their commission.
That's
so
correct.
they can make 3-4 times the amount on side jobs and working security detail or traffic detail. And that's where they make the more money. They make more money than some of our officers, full-time officers here. So we've always tried to do that. But it just seems like from back then, like I mentioned, it's far and few, because they're looking for a full-time position. And we've acquired some of our officers currently now that are full-time from our reserve program. It just seemed like that was like their stepping stone in order for them to get acclimated into our department. So I mean, we can just put it out there more.
What's the current hours right now? Because it used to be 16 hours per month.
For reserve time?
Yes.
24.
Now it's 24 hours.
Yes, sir.
So if you stay within the 24-hour limit, you create, because I know the reserve program very well.
Sure.
I served in it for some time at one time. And the reserve program is and can be used, and people will come just to keep their commissions active.
Yes, sir.
And some are retired. These are retired officers that you can utilize that have experience. Some of them SAPD, some of them sergeants, some of them ex-TABC. You have different officers that have different, and they want to keep their commission active. They don't care about the money. They've got their retirement. Those are the ones you want to look for. And so it doesn't cost us. You stay within the threshold of that hourly 24-hour deal,
Yes, sir.
and you'll be safe. You won't have any problems of being accused of any kind of EEOC or any type of violations policy against that. So I think if you can get started on that and then get your warrant program built up by that is also, that will definitely help us start bringing more revenue in. Then the council can start taking proactive measures to hopefully address some of these other issues and possibly look at not outsourcing our dispatch, but maybe doing something different and looking at other departments where you can possibly cut. Perhaps when the next item comes up, they can consider it, look at it, see the compensation study by a professional agency. They can do salary studies, can give us the proper direction at that point. So, and with that, I'll close. And Mr. Lisea, you wanted to say a few things.
Yeah, yes, Mayor. I agree with some of the things that you're saying. I know the warrant program that was in place at the time was not efficient,
Yes,
the way it was operated. So bringing a warrant program that would better align with our needs would be good. But what we had at the time needed to be, in my opinion, needed to be stopped.
Okay.
In relation to using our officers to go out and serve the warrants, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because we'd be taken away from the responsibility and keeping our citizens safe to go out and look for warrants. So I don't think that would be a very good idea for us to do. And then the reserves, I like that idea. I just want to make sure that whatever expenses are going to be incurred, that we take all that into account. Are we going to have to put them into our TML risk pool, that we get all those figures of safety, that all areas are covered? But I mean, I agree with some of your ideas, but let's make sure that all areas are covered and we're not opening up ourselves to bigger liability
Yes, sir.
in the future.
Point taken. I think that those are good recommendations and good observations on your part. So Chief, perhaps we can work on that and start getting things going on that. And Mr. Licea's concerns to be addressed as well on the liability exposure and some of that other things. But I think if you stay within your perimeters, it'll work. And on the officers, what I meant by that, Mr. Licea, just so I could make sure I understood, I was understood, is that not like taking our officers from their work, meaning like on their day off. If they wanted to come and make extra money by I was thinking like of a commission incentive, to where, you know how the other warrant officer we had, he was working on a commission. He worked off of every warrant. He took a percentage of that amount of fine and he kept that in his pocket. That was his compensation.
Right. And
So we didn't have to
like I
put
said,
him a salary or benefits or anything.
right.
So I was
It
thinking
just,
the
as
same
long as
thing with our side.
we do the math, that it's to our benefit.
Okay,
And not to the benefit of the person doing it.
point taken. Thanks, yes, sir.
Mayor, if I
Okay.
may?
Yes.
Just one point.
Councilman Sines?
So in your points you were making earlier with Mr. Messick, you were saying the city has been irresponsible with our funds and that we need to ensure that we have money saved. And I want to point out that we do. That's one of the things that our city has, is a minimum of 3 months reserve in case anything happens, like a COVID level event where sales tax just cease automatically or suddenly. So we do have that cushion of 3 months. We also do have other measures that we could take, austerity type measures, where we could continue city operations for another period beyond that. So you were hinting that we were being irresponsible. We didn't have that money. We do have that rainy day fund available in the event of an emergency situation.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, yes, Councilman Sellers?
I just want to, and I don't know if it's possible. I've heard that it's been tried before and we were shot down, but maybe somebody could retry. And I've been thinking for weeks about this, and that's to enlarge the city of Balcony Heights. I don't know. I heard that San Antonio shot us down cold. But if we were to go like Hillcrest and Babcock to the highway, back up to Fredericksburg Road and include all that area in Balcony Heights, we wouldn't be in the state that we're in now. And then, like I said, I've heard that it's been tried before, but maybe it's something we can retry.
Councilman Sellers, anybody else have any comments? Well, I think we've all made good suggestions, observations, and I appreciate everybody's input. Thank you, all you council members, for that. are we pretty much done with discussion now on the budget? Do we move forward on the next item? Okay, let's move forward. Thank you, everyone. So the next item is 2. Thank you, Mr. Messick. Discussion and action to retain the services of professional human resources consulting services to conduct position classification and salary compensation studies for analysis and recommendation for salary ranges for each job classification that aligns with the needs of the community and align compensation with our city's financial capabilities. So while you kind of ponder on that, if you may excuse me, I'm going to get some water real quick. I'm a little parched.
Yeah, Mayor, let's go recess. We go recess. 2 minutes.
So there's been a request to do a recess at 7:45 PM. We're going to take a small little 5-minute recess, give everybody a chance to stretch out and come right back. Thank you. Time is 7:54. We're back from our little break. Let me go ahead and read the item again off the agenda. Item number 2, discussion and action to retain the services of professional human resources consulting services to conduct position, classification, and salary compensation studies for analysis and recommendations for salary ranges for each job classification that align with the needs of the community and align compensation with our city's financial capabilities. So just a quick little brief as to how I came about this information. I spoke with Bennett Sandlin, who is the Executive Director of Texas Municipal League. I've known him for many, many years, and I wanted to ask him, and I had him look at some of the numbers and some of the figures that we have in our salaries and positions that are classified. And I asked for his advice, and he said that he would recommend, I asked him if he could recommend to me a city employee compensation professionals so that could help us in trying to determine whether we are overstaffed and whether our budget cannot continue to sustain this kind of staffing that we have and the high salaries that are in place, whether we can continue to sustain that or not. So rather than just me saying it, I've sought out a professional to possibly look at this for us and for us to invest into this very important study that would be an outside source that is not anyone from our employees. And we would have a very unbiased opinion and professional recommendation as to where we stand at with compensation and positions, classifications. So council, this is basically what I did. So I brought you a little information, and it's not to adopt CPS or anybody like them. It's to, say, let's move forward and let's get some numbers and let's work towards getting a compensation study once and for all for the city to see where we stand, or whatever other recommendations you have, I'm open to it. So I'm at the liberty of the council's comments. Councilman
Yes,
Barrera?
Mayor, unless I'm wrong, but the way I read this is discussion and action to retain the services of a professional human resources consulting services. So the question that I had on that is, who is our consulting services?
Well, the one that I recommended that responded was CPS HR Consulting. That was one of the ones that Mr. Sandlin in his email that sent to us, where he says it was great chatting with you this week. Here are 2 companies that specialize in employee compensation studies. So this is one of the ones that, of the 2 that I contacted. There are others we can contact, and we could modify the language of the actual agenda item if you like. To where we
Okay,
don't have
yeah,
to
because-
retain,
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
instead of retain, should it be recommend or?
right. And I think that on the future, I'll put that recommend instead of retain. So it may have been a mistake on my part. My
Okay.
intent was, let's move forward. Let's get it done. Let's look at it to see if
Right.
we can do something like
And
that.
at that time, we should get some numbers for
Yeah, we
the,
should
as far
get
as the
some solid
cost, right?
numbers. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Councilman Lysia?
On this one, we're just looking to pretty much do an RFP to get a company to come out and do the study for us and find out where we can cut and where we should cut.
I don't think we should go with an RFP because I think we can cut through that chase by looking at this guy, CPS HR, and maybe one or two others
Mhm.
and having them bring us some numbers. So we don't have to go through the expense of any RFP or anything. Provide some numbers to us. You got a pretty good idea now with the document I gave you,
Yeah,
what they do.
I've
So,
dealt with.
so just, I
Six
guess. what I'm
Sigma and
looking for,
lean.
Councilman
Mhm.
Lysia,
Yeah.
is like direction to go ahead and move forward. Let's investigate more. And then once we get three solids or whatever numbers we can, I'm looking for an answer from the council to say, let's move ahead, let's do it. This is something we should do. Let's do the study and invest the money into doing this.
The,
That's what I'm looking for,
guess it-
for the city.
the next question I have is, should we retain the services of a company and they tell us, okay, this department has got to go? Are we willing to go with that?
That's what, I think that's a good question.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that you need to ask yourself, because if you're getting the professional advice from a company you've paid to give you that advice, and then you would go against it, knowingly that it's something that would help our city be in line to sustain what our budget can afford and what our city can sustain as far as employee and compensation, then it would be almost like your attorney giving you advice not to do something. And I mean, kind of a comparison.
Right,
I mean,
but-
I hope I'm doing
Right,
it right.
and I just want to make sure that if we're going to make the investment and the results come back and it's not what we expected, are we still willing to make the cuts and changes that are being recommended?
I
and-
think
and-
that's a good question. And I
Right.
think that's something that you should ask yourself, because obviously I don't have a vote.
Right,
I'm just trying to make a reasonable recommendation to you, to the council, just
Right.
for consideration and say, let's
And-
do the study so we know if exactly we are where we need to be
Right.
or not.
okay. And I guess for members of the council, are we, Mr. Sines, Mr. Sellers, and Mr. Burton, should we go forward with this and the recommendation comes from the agency that says this department has got to go? Are we willing to go forward with that? Or are we going to be apprehensive and say, well, we like the idea, but maybe not?
Go ahead, Mr. Silver.
The question I have is if we go ahead with this, and we hire this guy as he come in, is he going to take their existing salaries that they have now and decrease it?
Possible. What these studies do is they take a very careful look at the amount of employees we have, the type of salaries that they're earning, and they don't take the studies that Mr. Messick has been providing for us. They take a different studies. They look at the size of the city, the size of the budget we have, anticipated revenues we have, and whether we actually need that particular service for our city, for our citizens. And that is something that, I'll give you an example. Community development. It's at $100 and something thousand a year, okay? So they can make a recommendation, look at it, they say, we really don't need a community development department. You can do fine with an assistant community, or you can do fine with a deputy community, or they may, whatever recommendation, I'm just giving you an example. The other example is, you don't need a finance director at $100 and so many thousand per year. You can get a contracted accountant to do that work. Or you can get somebody that's in finance that has a CPA, but you don't need to have that salary classification at that amount of money. And you may be able to save yourself $75,000, $80,000 a year on that job alone. Example. So that's what the value of there is, because right now I've divulged to the citizens and everyone of what we're paying our employees, how much it's costing us to run our city with the staff that we have. And also the other thing they take in consideration, which is very valuable that Mr. Perales brought up at one time, is that our staffs do wear many hats. So they take that in consideration as well. How many hats they wear, what kind of duties that they're performing for their jobs, and see if it's in line with the salary structure that is sustainability for our budget. And that's very important because, it's good to know whether you are within the proper salary structure. And it's like Mr. Hernandez, one of our citizens, mentioned earlier in his presentation. A professional needs to be able to guide you, to tell you what these salary structures are, where your city is at. That's what we're looking for. And that's all I'm recommending to the city council to consider. And I think it's very important. Consider there is questions there about salaries and where do we cut, where don't we cut? Can we do without this? Can we do without that? Can we do without a dispatch? And so that's basically
And
in a nutshell.
in response to that, I think this is an excellent idea, Juan. It's 10 years too late. That's what I think.
Mhm.
It should have been implemented 10 years ago.
Right.
And for future employees, for Gilbert and Delia, this is a great idea. Okay. I'm not in favor of taking our existing employees' salary down. Okay, I am in favor of hiring someone that replaces them on a salary that is comparable to our city.
Okay.
That's the best
Right.
answer I can give you,
Right.
Juan.
Say if I spoke over
Right.
you earlier, you still have the floor?
Right.
And you had asked him, and then I.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that we're only doing a classification and salary study, not the overall operation, just the position and the salary. We're not looking at the overall operation.
Okay,
Because the way I'm reading this is all we're looking at is classification and salary.
yes, sir.
I want to make sure that we study the whole package, that we study the whole city.
So you're saying you want to study the whole city
We need to,
services?
we need to expand it because if
Okay.
we're only going to look at the positions we have and the salaries,
Okay,
but then they say, but you know what, you have this department over here that's excessive and it's costing you way too much. Well, it's not included in this package.
okay,
So I guess what I'm looking for is either a lean study or a Six Sigma expert to come in and that's their specialty. That's all they do is find and the programs and fix programs to get best efficiencies.
okay, so overall,
Overall, to see
Okay.
the overall package,
All right,
not
let me
just the
communicate with
title
them and
and
ask all
and a
right.
position.
I'll definitely communicate back with them and get some input on the overall aspect, not just classification of the jobs and the salaries.
Right,
But overall.
right. The
Okay.
overall functions of the city.
All right. Thank you very much for that recommendation. Anything else, Mr. Lysia? Councilman Lysia?
That's it for me.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Sine?
Thank you. So the thing that concerns me is it seems like there's already been a consultant that's already been chosen for this without having given other consultants an opportunity to request or to provide an estimate of how much this will cost. I would like for us to explore this a little bit further and find out what other groups or companies are out there that could provide the service to us, get a range of responses, and that way we could have a good choice of which one would be the most cost efficient for us, instead of just choosing this one out of a recommendation from somebody I don't know. You may know him for 20 something years or whatever, but just because he recommends them doesn't mean that they are the best one in the industry for our situation. So I would like to put it out there and request for do an RFP. So that way we can get that range of responses back with the cost estimates.
Okay, I think that's an excellent idea. I was thinking to myself, would you like to help me with that? Do some of the exploring and calling on some of these people, or would you rather go the RFP process? Is
I
what
would
you're-
rather do the RFP. That way it's independent of us and our
Okay.
opinions.
What do you think about that, RFP? Everyone? Councilman
I
Sines,
think
you
that,
okay
that,
with
that'd be the best route to go. That way we
Okay.
eliminate any potential conflicts.
Mr. Valverde, you okay with that?
That would be your action then out of this item would be to
Right, we
move
can
to-
modify it to RFP it.
move to issue an RFP
Uh-huh.
to find these. And then if there are firms that you've already gotten
We
a
can
lead on, you
let
could
them
just,
know, yeah.
yeah, just make sure they know about it. and
Okay.
then they get a chance to respond.
No,
All
my,
right.
my understanding is if we do an RFP, we can't contact those firms regarding that
Looking for a
RFP
motion.
and kind of, there may be a conflict of interest and say, hey,
You could definitely. if
we
you have
could,
an email
we
address
could
to
let them
someone,
know
say,
about it, but we
"Here's the
couldn't
RFP."
give them, hey, we've gotten some information, we've gotten some contract, or estimates back, and this is what those ranges are, right?
No, I just
So
mean, you
once
can
that
invite.
RFP goes out, we can't contact them further with further details about it.
Yeah,
right?
it should all be
Just-
done in a meeting setting at that point, but you can, if you don't want someone who you're interested in to not know that they're in.
No,
RFP,
yeah, we want to
so, yeah.
ensure, hey, we're putting out an
That's
RFP,
what I'm
but
saying.
once
He's
we,
gotten two names, he can send those out.
Yeah,
Y'all, and
but-
the rest of y'all know
yeah,
people.
but
who do
once
comp studies.
the advertisement is out, we kind of cease conversation with them to,
Yeah,
so
you
that
would
way
just
there's no
be-
potential conflicts.
Everything that they need to say regarding their proposal is going to be in the proposal itself.
Right, yeah.
And presented to all of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sine. That's great input. Okay, well, I think I agree with that. I think that's a very logical approach. I was just trying to save the process of the RFP, but if y'all prefer it, I'm all for it. Okay. Councilman Burton, do you have anything statements or anything you want to say?
I really didn't get to study this too much. I didn't get this till 5. I didn't know it was in my Dropbox and I didn't get a hard copy.
Yeah, I got it late myself, so I just, as soon as I got it, I fired it off to you guys. But I think the general consensus is, let's move forward to get that RFP and get more information. And then everybody can make more of an informed decision. Is that what I'm hearing? Great, okay, great. Councilman Sellers?
Just, if you're looking for action, I'm gonna make a motion to
Okay,
postpone it
or to postpone it or
uh,
to do an RFP,
for more information,
to do an RFP?
to do an R,
Okay,
okay?
okay, is that what you meant?
And perhaps by next council meeting,
We'll have more info.
we'll have more info.
Okay, do we have a second to his motion? Yes, go ahead, Councilman. Sellers.
Clarified verbiage before we send it out is what
Yeah.
we're looking for. Councilman Sellers,
To fine tune the info. like
that's it,
we
that's what we're gonna be
discussed.
requesting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a second from Council Lysia. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Councilman Valverde,
Yay.
Councilman Sines,
Yay.
Councilman Lysia,
Yay.
Councilman Sellers,
Yeah,
Councilman Burton.
Yay.
Okay, 5, motion carries, 5-0. So we'll instruct you, Mr. Perales, if we can start the RFP process on that.
That's what I needed to know. 'Cause You didn't say anything about directing
Yeah,
staff.
no.
so, you know.
We'll instruct you to go ahead and do that and give you the green light. Thank
So
you, gentlemen, very much.
The only thing I ask is, you were all over the board on what you want.
Right.
I don't know what you want.
Yes.
Specifically, so maybe, you can send me something about what the expectation is.
Okay.
So
It's
the,
gotta be added to the RFP.
Yeah.
And I think Councilman Lysia made some pretty good points on, he wants an overall view.
Okay.
So I
then-
think
then
he
I'll
pretty
do
much
that.
clarified
I'll
for
put
us.
something together for that.
yeah, at minimum, it's going to be companies engaging in compensation studies. Those that respond, that have other capabilities, they're generally big management consulting companies. So if they
Right.
do other services, they'll let y'all know.
It'll be salary and compensation studies, and then add that overall in statement that Mr. Councilman Lysia wanted. Overall, just overall in general. Mhm. Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you, Council. Okay, so let's move on now to the other item on the agenda. We have item number 3, discussion and action to approve the retention of clear career professionals to provide professional executive interim services for the recruitment and temporary retention of an experienced interim city administrator at an hourly rate with no city benefits until a permanent city administrator can be hired. Again, this is an action item that perhaps if you don't want to entertain an action item, then you can offer a suggestion to it. The reason I chose the clear career professionals, because that was the lowest on the RFP process that we had in response back from. I did call them and I spoke with them and I said, you guys responded to an RFP that the council had previously decided not to retain services from any of the responses of the RFP and wanted to go another route. That has since changed. Would you still be interested in it? And if you can you provide me some numbers to provide to the council so that I can inform them? And that's where we're at on that right now. What is the council's comments on that? Again, you don't have to take action if you don't want to, but if you want to, then you know, you have the kind of documents that he replied with. And if you, whatever the purview of the council is on that.
So. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Burton, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, am I to understand that it's part of this also, plus the little update we got here? So we're looking at $18,000. Then if we hire a city manager, a temporary
An interim,
city manager, that's at $70 hourly
correct.
and $1,000 a month housing.
I saw that too, yeah.
I thought they were gonna be negotiable and they were gonna bring the price down.
Well, this here's what they responded with. The 14 that you're talking, or is 18 or 14? I forget. It's 18. For the actual,
18,000.
yeah, for the actual selection and advertising, background checks. We work with them. There's going to be work sessions. That is a different service that they're providing. That is what they originally responded to us on. They were the lowest of the 3 RFPs we got, if y'all remember. So then, you know, I thought I'd give you an option, and I thought I'd make a suggestion if you wanted an interim city administrator, that they offered it. So I did talk to them and ask them, do you offer interim services? Do you have somebody to fill in the shoes prior to Mr. Perales leaving, a week or two before, or right at the moment that Mr. Perales leaves on the 20th? And they said, yes, we do have staff, city administrators on call that we can bring in that have a vast number of experiences and years of experiences that we can provide. Okay, tell me how much that would cost us if you do, so I can bring it to the attention of the council and let them review it and make a decision on that. And he came back with that number of, for an interim services. Now, based on my calculations from what I looked at that he sent us, he's looking probably at about 2 to 3 months, depending on how fast we want to move to replace our city administrator, the permanent one. The process, that's why I got started 4 months ago with the council to try to bring this information to you and go for an RFP, because I was already anticipating Gilbert's departure on the 20th. So 4 months ago, I was hoping that we did that, but we got a little sidetracked. So we're at this point right now, and so it's at the purview of the council if they want to hire a qualified interim city manager at the rate that he is. And we probably can negotiate that if we want. I can try, drop the fee down from the 70 and the monthly housing fee of 1,000. But if you wanted to do an interim, that's what it would cost us right now. If you don't want to do an interim, then it's a moot point. All you need to do is decide whether you'd like to go with this lowest one that we got from the RFP to do a professional search for our new city administrator with the qualifications we're looking for as an administrator and an economic development director, or rather with economic development skills as well. So again, suggestion, whatever the council thinks, I just thought I'd put it out there and give you some options to work with on.
I do have a question, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Barber, go right ahead.
So this company will charge $18,000 for an interim if we decide to go with an interim?
No, they charge $18,000 to screen, to apply, to advertise for a new city administrator, take in those applications, review them. Based on our meetings prior to him going out to doing these application requests, we're going to meet with him and he's going to determine what we want out of our city administrator. The process that we had talked about, the steps about what are we looking for in our new city administrator? What is it that you would like to see? What is it Councilman Sines would like to see and Councilman Lisea would like to see? And all of us collectively come together to basically form our new city administrator and what we want and the qualities out of him.
And that's going to be item 4 for the city admin and 5 for city secretary. On 3, this is just a flat proposal to send a temp, basically a temporary
Yes.
person. And
If you
at
want that option.
At that hourly fee with the monthly resident, there's no searching involved in that. They're just,
Yeah.
they have a
They got
roster of
somebody
people.
available to come in.
The first one that they call, it says, I'm
But the 18 is to find your new city administrator, process
So-
them, background them, everything.
So
And you choose.
item number 3 is not gonna cost. Interim, where did I read
Mayor.
interim?
Yes,
May I be?
Councilman Sines,
Yeah.
go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, so to answer your question, so the hourly rate would be about $70 an hour for this individual. To come in on an intro basis. So, but that's for straight pay. So that doesn't include overtime pay. So I wanted to ask Mr. Perales about how many hours do you work on a weekly basis? I know your salary,
Remember,
but-
this is, under FLSA as an exempt, it doesn't matter how many hours they work. Remember that,
What-
so it,
You're exempt, but would this hourly person be exempt?
yeah, they would come in as an exempt employee.
And they're actually
Uh,
gonna be
the-
a contract employee. And that would be probably stipulated. If there was any kind of hours limitation or something, we wouldn't know that until we get. a
So, okay, so if I may, you have a choice. You can hire somebody hourly, or you can hire somebody as as an exempt employee with the understanding that, they will do the job regardless of what it takes. I mean, that's usually the way it works.
And that's my experience, because I've worked both as a contract employee and as an exempt.
Yeah.
And when I was a contract employee, if I worked over 40 hours, even though the position I was filling was exempt for my
Yeah.
colleagues that were full-time, I was still eligible for overtime. So if I worked over 40 hours, I would still get overtime on
Yeah.
that. So that's what I wanted to ensure, because if, I know in a leadership position, you probably work 50, 60 hours a week.
Sure.
So if that's the case, then we're looking over $3,000 a week, well over, for an employee, actually almost $4,000 a week if he works 50 hours a week and gets overtime. So that's over 50 weeks, almost $200,000
And without,
plus
without
the
seeing,
$1,000 a month.
yeah, without
So-
seeing the proposal,
Yeah,
I don't understand how much they're charging. So typically for an organization, whenever they place an interim, the hourly rate includes their pay too.
Mhm.
So whatever it costs them, because they typically, what you do is you pay the company pays the contract employee. That's the way it works.
right.
Now, this one includes $1,000 for housing. Because typically these folks are from out of town. And so it depends on what I don't know what the proposal is. I've never seen anything. So I don't know what they're charging.
Yeah,
And I don't know if the 70 is for the individual or the 70 includes their fee as well.
Right, the overall fee.
And I
yeah.
think that's where y'all are at on this agenda item is the next step, if you wanted to move forward at all, would be to ask them for more specific, to bring a specific contract and how that's going to work, whether it has any other fees or any other costs. And y'all would get a chance to look at that.
Yeah.
Because that hasn't
And then-
been submitted yet. This is kind of more of a, here's our going rate for the service. They tailored it down. How long do you want the person? Cap on how many hours they can work, all these questions.
What
It's sorted
requirements we
out.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can do that, Mr. Sines, if you like. Call them and ask them and say, look, that's because those are good points you brought up. I think we need to ask them about overtime. We need to ask them about, this is without benefits. It's strictly your hourly rate. Is it negotiable? And again, when I mentioned earlier, you don't have to vote on this at this moment. I can change, next one, I'll change the language for consideration. And then what we do is right now we'll consider it. If you like for me, I'll go over and ask more questions about like what we just discussed right now and get those answers. And then in the next meeting, we can address it. I think our next meeting is on the 23rd, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and Mr. Perales will be on the 20th. I guess that's why I was trying to get it done very quickly and bring it to your attention as soon as possible. If you like, we can call a special meeting in between that time and address it as soon as I get those answers and bring it to you. And then you say what you want to do at that time and the council decides what you want. Mr. Macedo, go ahead.
Yeah, I like this process. Have we already looked at looking into the job pool from TML or the City Managers Association and just going straight through them? See if anybody wants a part-time instead of making this expense?
Be another excellent suggestion
Mhm.
we could do also. We
Right.
Could go through
So
TML.
to go through
Yeah.
TML, go to the City Manager
Yeah,
Association.
I don't see why that wouldn't
And,
be a bad
find
idea.
any resources that we have without having to make the
Sure.
expense, considering it's going to be a temporary.
That's a good option we can exercise as well and possibly maybe save a little money.
Yes, Mayor. Yeah, that was one of my questions. Wouldn't TML be able to help us? But I'm still not clear as what, for item number 3, let's say we do that, that's gonna cost $18,000. And then to hire a full-time, is that another $18,000? No charge.
Go ahead, Mr.
There's no,
Oster.
As of right now, what they submitted to y'all for tonight's meeting, it's just an hourly rate and then a monthly housing fee. That's the total cost they've represented right now.
To get
provide
somebody in
interim-
temporary.
Yeah, an interim person on a month-to-month.
Until we hire a
basis.
permanent one.
And
Now,
there's no mention of-
18,000 only comes in, I'm sorry, Mr. I didn't mean to speak.
Well,
over you.
I just don't want to, also don't want to speak for the company because they're not here tonight. It may be that if you want to pursue that, they may say, well, there's also another, some other fee or cost or something. involved. But that's
Right.
not part of their proposal tonight. It's just.
Okay,
So
so now for the city administrator, it is $18,000. And then item number 5 shows for a
Yeah, but we're still on item number.
city secretary, though. That's
Yeah,
another
we'll get to that.
18,000.
It's gonna be basically the same thing we're discussing right now. But item 3 is basically like an option, but I think Mr. Lisea has solved the problem. Instead of going with Clear Career Professionals, we go through TML and see if we can get a temporary. I don't know if it's possible through TML, but maybe get a temporary that could save us that fee and the housing fee and all that. We don't know. Let's try that.
yeah.
Councilman
Also,
Sines.
we also do have a
So-
qualified person in-house already that could be interested in that as well. So I think we should
Who is
open it up to, Mr. Lara. He meets the qualifications or the minimum qualifications for city administrator.
With the minimum qualifications you proposed last time, if I'm not mistaken, was
The
7
master's
years.
degree, 7 to 10 years at
7,
that
10 years
executive
of
level.
actual city administrative position.
At that executive level is what it, yeah, city administrators, assistant city administrator, or that level is what it says.
And what are you gonna do about the community development position?
Well, he's retiring on the 30th, so he would just,
So you want to use him as our interim
he
city
he could
manager?
potentially,
But he's never served as a city manager before.
but he's been at that executive level.
I don't think that would be a good idea. We need somebody that's really a city manager, not somebody that's worked as a community development, transitioning over to city manager. We're in a very pivotal moment. But I do agree with both of you about TML. I do agree with that. I'll meet you halfway. I do agree with that, that we should go ahead and advertise to see. And Mr. Pedas was going to mention something about
so
part-time.
We can advertise. The only thing I need from you guys is a salary range, because it typically that's what they ask for.
Okay,
And so we can advertise for the interim and just give me a salary range
okay.
to throw in there.
So if we want to do that, I'd meet you halfway there on that, but I don't really think Mr. Lotta would be somebody we should put in there.
Well, I think, I mean, if he applies for the position and is one of the candidates, then we go through that, but.
Yeah,
but-
I mean,
but yeah,
obviously he has the
right.
right to apply.
Right.
You're correct. He has a right to apply. Anybody has a right to apply.
Well,
So I guess what we're looking for is a motion to
Well,
go
yeah.
ahead and move with TML. like you
I
recommend?
think we need a little bit more because we need to provide Mr. Pross with a salary range.
Salary range.
Do you have a salary range that you would recommend or?
okay,
Right.
And
so
y'all-
we'll work on that one.
Yeah,
y'all
let's all work on it together and do
Right.
our research. And then let's come together and throw some numbers out to each other, see if we feel good about it.
Yeah, there's no
Everybody
need
else.
on,
That, I think it's time right now to make a motion. I make a motion to deny this. Number 3,
You've already made a motion to,
deny.
well,
it.
yeah, y'all,
accept it
y'all
and-
don't even need to, so if you can make a motion to approve or disapprove of this clear,
Right.
Career-
Yeah,
Clear
I'm
Career
making a
Professionals offer.
motion to disapprove.
even then
Number
they,
3.
we don't actually have a
Okay.
contract
All right.
thing in front.
Okay.
in front of
And
us,
Even
so-
though
to
we don't have-
clarify that is to disapprove the recruitment of temporary retention.
okay?
Okay, just to
All right.
clarify that.
So because we're gonna go the TML route, so I'm in agreement with that.
And that'll
Do
be
we
a
have a
future
second to
agenda
that?
item. So
Yeah, so I think,
Do we have a second? To just not go after number 3, not do anything with number 3. Other than you're gonna add to your amendment, or rather you're gonna add to it the language that says
So the-
instruct
the
Mr.
mo- the
Perales, but-
motion- The motion right now is to not proceed with clear career professionals with regard to an interim city administrator. Right?
Okay.
And we have a
then-
Is there a
second.
second to that?
Yeah, okay. Do we have a second to it?
I didn't.
Councilman Sellers, you second it?
I second.
Okay. So any more discussion on possibly Mr. Perales, you have input?
So you may want to add.
I
an
think we need
Right.
to
amendment
amend.
now,
Right,
But
that's
I
what I
could
was getting
amend
Get
it.
an amendment
amend
now
it, yeah.
to pursue. or
Right.
to
TML.
Well,
follow through
that's
with-
not
with
on the
TML.
agenda. That's not on the agenda tonight, and that can be done separately. You've heard that feedback and can bring that up as a future agenda. item. Y'all don't need any kind of vote to do that. Been
No, I
been
think,
discussed.
I think we
Right.
can amend it now and add it to,
Yeah.
even though it's,
I'm
because
saying
it's part of,
not-
it's
not
part of,
part of this agenda item to solicit that service from another provider, be it TML or anyone else.
Oh, because it's
So this-
specific name.
Because it's
Yeah,
too
as-
There's a
specific.
specific name.
As a future agenda item, y'all could definitely bring back the same language, but with TML inserted or whoever it is inserted.
Or could we leave it
But that's
general?
just based on feedback and discussion. The mayor could do that on his own prerogative.
So it's
But-
because it's too specific in this case, whereas if it was more general or more generic
If
language.
it didn't
we
have a
could
name of a company, we could amend it.
Amend it to say you want a interim administrator, just not one from Clear Creek
Right,
Professionals.
so search to go search, but not through.
That
Here.
would be, and that's kind of implied in what y'all are doing. You're saying,
Okay.
we don't want to do this tonight.
Mhm.
And we're disapproving this, but the feedback has been, there's still interest among you in some kind of interim city admin, just not from this company.
Right.
And that's enough to
well,
create a future
specifically with
agenda item
TML.
Okay.
about that. Yeah, whether it's TML or someone else.
Right.
yeah, it would work.
But I'd have to disagree with that. I think that under Robert's Rules of Order, we can amend it. You can add an amendment to it and it can say, because it is germane to what we're talking about.
Okay,
It's the
let's
same
do, let's
thing.
do this. We have a motion and a second on disapproving this. If you all want to do a subsequent motion to have a future agenda item or TML to be involved in this, then you could do it that. way.
Actually, what we need is an amendment to move forward with getting TML done because time is of an essence for us. So the amendment, under my interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order, is an amendment can be made if it's germane to the item on the agenda, which it is. So the amendment would say.
This agenda
Hold on,
item
hold on,
is-
hold on, hold on, hold on,
is the
hold on.
retention of a particular company. And you all are saying, we don't want to do that.
Right, and we had the same thing before in the other one. We also changed the language on that too. Because that was also for retention of a professional of human resources, remember? And then we went ahead with that to go ahead and move forward to getting more information and getting the information necessary to make a decision on this. And I think a decision was made. We had a first and a second to it, and it was still to retain. And we said, no, we're not going to retain. What we're going to do is we like the idea of doing it. We want to look more into it, get us more information pertaining to us, and then we can rediscuss it again with an overview of everybody's compensation. So you see how it was changed? We can do the same thing on this.
I've given my opinion. Y'all can do what you like at this point.
Mayor, just to
Right,
clarify
right,
what
right.
my motion was, and that's to disapprove the retention of Clearwater professionals
That's correct.
to hire a recruitment temporary. Okay,
Right,
Right.
and that's it.
right, and that's it. And we have a second to it. And so all we were just discussing right now, just so you know, Mr. Sellers, if an amendment wanted to be made to,
We could
Add
bring that, we could
with
bring an
TML.
item up on the agenda the next time.
Right.
okay, all right, all
Yeah,
right, so.
Correct.
I agree.
I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and rule that we move forward. So we have a second, we have discussion, then we've discussed it. So now let's go ahead and call the vote. Councilman Valverde, yea or nay?
Yay.
Councilman Sines,
Yeah.
Councilman Lisea,
Yay.
Councilman Sellers,
Yay.
Councilman Burton.
Okay.
Okay, we have 5-0, motion carries. Then the item fails for number 3. So let's go ahead and go discussion and action to approve the retention of clear career professionals to provide professional executive recruitment services for the recruitment and hire of a permanent city administrator. Now, this one, Mr. Valverde, is the one that you would spend 18,000 to have them look for a permanent city administrator based on all the criteria and qualifications you're looking for in your next city administrator when we do contract them. So let's open it up for discussion or consideration. Okay, Councilman Burton?
I know that time is of the essence on this. But seeing how it went with item number 3, and we're going to try with TML, isn't this putting the cart before the horse kind of thing now? I mean, I don't know. Because we're gonna do it with TML.
Yeah, and I kind of feel now with my colleagues that TML might be a good answer for us all the way around. You know, how do you feel about that? Councilman Lysia, same
I
feeling?
agree.
Okay.
I mean, I have comments when we go further down
Okay.
on this, but
Mr. Burton, you still have the floor, sir, so go ahead and finish up.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know if we really need to discuss on item 4 because we're already going to give a salary range to Mr. Palace and try and see if TML, but again, you know, we all got to understand that time is of the essence.
I think we all pretty much, that's,
I just want,
appreciate you
yeah,
letting us know.
I just want
Councilman
to make
Lysia?
sure that when we go looking at that, we don't limit it just to TML. Because I know there's a city managers association or something else.
There's several organizations that that we'll use and that we can use, and that's for both positions. If that's the way the council wants to go in that direction, we can go ahead and do that. And what we can do is work on a profile and then send it to you guys to make sure that you're comfortable with the profile. But remember that, you know, it is still some time. So they advertise
Yeah.
and they advertise all over the state. ICMA also does some, there's a city secretaries group that also does that.
Right.
So we can take advantage of all that stuff and it will be cheaper.
May I make a suggestion to my colleagues? Let's call a special budget, or rather a special meeting soon, and then like next week. And let's have the meeting with this criteria that you have in mind. I'm all for it. But instead, let's put the qualifications, the salary we're probably looking at, what is it that we're looking for in our new city administrator? This way, when we get the responses, you will be able to, we'll all be collectively on the same page as to what we're looking for in our new city administrator. It's within the guidelines of what TML showed us to do. It gave us the guidelines and it said, gather what you're looking for in your city administrator. Excuse me? Yes, for both positions, exactly. City administrator and city secretary. So let's start structuring between now and then. I will task all of you on the council. Let's come up with some ideas. If you can please submit them to me. And this way you will have them, I will have them. And then in the special meeting, let's discuss it and fine tune it and say, this is what we're looking for in a city secretary. This is what we're looking for in a city administrator position. In the city administrator, we've all collectively agreed that we're looking for a city administrator with economic development experience, right? I think we all agree on that. So that's like a start right there. So let's start with something like that. Now, each one of us may have a particular skill that we're looking for out of that city administrator. So if you could write that down in a little list and just say, I'd like to see this in the city administrator. And that comes from Councilman Sellers. And you, Mr. Valverde. This is the things that I think the strengths I'm looking for in a city administrator. Then we all compile it together in the city secretary, make a decision, and then we give the marching orders to whomever's there at the time, Mr. Perales, whatever. This is what you'll advertise for. And then now we have those kind of qualified candidates that are going to be looking on our description of what we're looking for. And then we can start making a decision to fill those out. What do y'all think about that?
Oh, I think about it. We've had over 60 days to come up with a solution, and every time we have a council meeting, we don't have enough information. We can't decide who to go with. We can't make a decision, and we've had lots of time. We're running short on time. We need to make a decision today.
A decision to do what?
I
today?
think we need to hire clear career professionals, and we need to just make the decision, go with it. Let them work on it because they're going to be taking time too. All right. It's not something that, so we have a meeting next week. We're going to discuss it some more, and time goes on and time goes on. And we just call these people tomorrow and say, start the ball. We're done.
That's
Mayor.
another perspective we can look at as a, as a possibility that he's right on that. In the sense that you have an unbiased company, they'll take it from the start to the beginning. They'll bring us the candidates. They'll put us through a process of streamlining who we want, how we want, all the things I just talked about right now. And then they'll take it for us and we don't have to worry about it. They'll do everything for us for that package deal. That's another good point he's making there also. So both are good points, but David doesn't want to wait any longer. Councilman Burton?
Well,
You
that's
wanna
kind
talk
of,
next?
that's kind of what I was saying earlier about time is of the essence. But, we discussed on item number 2, what are our thresholds for salaries? And we're gonna have the guy come in for a salary survey.
That's what Clearwater.
That's what Clearwater will do for us. They're gonna determine salaries through, you remember that TML booklet I gave you where it gave everyone, it said, these are the steps we need to take to find a new city administrator? That was the first step I took that I gave you 4 months ago. And I said, this is the guidelines we need to follow. And then I followed up, let's do an RFP. And then once we did the RFP, they were gonna do that for us. The guidelines of, this is what we're looking for, this is how much you should be paying him, or how much we recommend you pay him, or this is his salary requirements. All that can be fielded out through the process. But like David's saying, we cut through the chase, hire that one individual, and that person gets it all done for us in one lock, stock, and barrel.
And
All we need to do is just choose them after we tell them what we want out of our city administrator.
from what I understand, Jack, they're gonna set a salary based on our city. Okay, not a city of 10,000 or 20,000, but our city. That's what they're gonna do.
Mayor, if I may. The only bad taste in my mouth with this is if we go like this, we're gonna be spending $36,000 between the city administrator and the city secretary. And that's a lot of money.
Correct.
That's the only thing that really, really bothers me. I don't know if TML will take just as long as this company here. I don't know.
The only thing I see about that, Mr. Valverde, respectfully, is that TML will only provide a form to advertise the job. They're not going to screen them for us. They're not going to interview them for us. They're not going to conduct any background checks for them. All that's left to us. And then that's where I think that we don't want to make the mistake. And for the investment of professional employment recruitment agency, an executive recruitment agency will assure us that we get a qualified candidate, unbiased, no connections to anybody, and they will be able to function in a capacity, at full capacity, because they're experienced already, based on the qualifications and the criteria we set forth to them, because they're going to question us. And that's where I see the plus in it. And go ahead, Mr.
I
Perales.
was just gonna say, with a guarantee within 1 year. If that
Yeah, if they
person
don't work
leaves,
out.
They'll find a replacement.
Free of
with-
charge.
Without any additional cost.
And that's pretty good, because if they don't work out within a year, we got a new city administrator. We don't have to pay another 18,000 for a city administrator or a city secretary.
Mayor,
Yes,
let me
Councilman.
ask you a question.
Yes.
Gilbert, can you clarify that salary? When I said they're gonna set a salary based on our city, that's not quite solid.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
They,
Can you clarify that?
you set the salary. They advertise your
Yeah,
salary.
okay.
Yeah,
We set the salary.
yeah.
But what I'm recommending is we make a decision now and be done with it, because time is going on. He's gonna retire, okay? The faster that we get him a replacement, the less time he spends here on salary.
Sooner we get the process started, the sooner we'll get done with getting a new city administrator, in a nutshell. Councilman Lysia, did you have something?
Yes, I'm torn on both ways. I'm going to continue to go with TML just because I'm not 100% sure that we haven't violated any rules in regards to procurement to giving everybody an equal opportunity to bid for the job. So we're going
So with
sole
regard-
sole sourcing.
just so you're all clear on that, because it's come up a couple times. You're required to do an RFP for certain things like construction projects and procuring like, equipment and things like that. When it comes to professional services, you're generally not. So if you know of a lawyer you want to hire, you can hire him. If you know of an engineer, you can hire him. A management consultant would be the same thing.
Okay.
You can do the RFP, it's optional.
Mhm.
But you can also do it a different way where you get a recommendation from someone and it's whatever you all decide to do at the
Okay.
end. So, and it's based on their proposal as well.
And it will be, Mr. Lysia, it will be advertised to Mr. Lotta, anybody that wants to apply. It's not just going to be restricted to just a group.
No, but.
It
we're
will be
referring to
available
the
under
com- the-
EEOC.
the co-
Everyone
the co-
can
the
apply.
Companies.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone can apply. And so it will meet the requirements of EEOC. Mr. Science?
Yeah, so I think the concern is that the RFP language, the contract that we have says there should be no contact between the city and the RFP firms until a decision is made. So until we select one, nobody should be contacting them and they should not be contacting anybody in the city, representing the city.
And
And
y'all terminated the RFP process at the last
Yeah.
meeting when
Did
you
we?
decided not to go with any of them.
That's right.
Okay, did that cancel it
Yeah.
altogether?
You're not obliged, in the RFP, it says we do not have to pick anybody. And
Right.
once you decide not to, then your options are to go out for a new RFP or figure out some other way to do
Or
it.
select this one if you want.
In this case, after you've concluded the RFP, if you circle back and pick somebody, then
Yeah.
you've reviewed all the proposals and made a decision not to accept them. Kind of in a no man's land at that.
Well, not necessarily. They're not a no man's land.
I mean, in the
Where
sense
you
that
at?
if you come back, you're like, we do like, let's reconsider.
Yeah.
Right?
And the
that's
reason,
the same thing as before you've considered all of them, you're interacting with a proposal, right? One of the respondents.
and in all fairness, just so you know, Mr. Science, are you finished? I'm sorry. Okay. And in all fairness, you weren't part of the process, so you weren't privy to all. What the council wanted to do was exercise another option that didn't work out. So I figured, let's suggest the last person we had on the RFP. So that RFP about don't contact these people no longer exists. Because now you can contact this company. And I thought, let me go with the lowest one.
Yeah.
And that's why I recommended it to you. So if you'd like to make a motion, you can make a motion.
I just want to ask Councilman Birdie something.
Clarify something from
Yes.
the last meeting. So on the discussion, the motion was to table the responses that we have now and go back and look for an organization that fits within our budget to give us what we need. That's the exact verbiage on the motion. So nothing was denied, it was only tabled.
Right.
So just to make sure that everybody understands what the process was then.
So then in that
right.
case, you are still within the RFP process and at your next regular, this is a special meeting. At your next regular meeting, all of those RFP choices, including clear career professionals, are going to be on there.
Okay.
So you all hadn't resolved.
But my,
Okay, so since it
my
hadn't
item on the,
been-
go ahead, Mr. Science.
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
since it hadn't been resolved and the RFP was still open, contacting clear career professionals, does that violate the RFP process?
I mean, he was asking about the RFP was with regard to kind of headhunter services, contacting him about the comp study and all of that. That's a much different.
No, not about the concept, about the recruitment and trying to get a temporary city administrator.
That was not included in the RFP. The RFP was about finding a new city admin and new city secretary. Those items will come back.
No, that's incorrect. The items were, and the item on the agenda, number 4, is to discussion and action to approve the retention of clear career professionals to provide professional executive recruitment services for the recruitment and hire of permanent city administrator. Now, they were considered already before,
And it was tabled.
and the council decided not to do anything with the RFPs.
They decided,
They
they
said.
decided to table it.
They said, they discussed and they said, can we use our our city attorney for that service? And then that item was placed on the agenda in the last council meeting. And in that council meeting, both Mr. Garza, or like, we don't need to speak about Mr. Perales, but Mr. Garza said, I will not be accepting the offer from the city council to act as the recruitment agency for a new
And
city
we didn't
administrator.
respond to the
So when,
RFP, so that you're.
so when that went a moot point,
Mhm.
that's when I placed it on the agenda because that was the last, one of the last of the 3 RFPs we had to give the council a choice to say, look, there's no sense putting the other 2 because they're too high. And Mr. Councilman Sellers said those 2 and he put them in the trash can and not worth anything. This one is the one that would be the most relevant at that point. And so at that point, whatever action was taken is a moot point because I placed this item on the agenda now. And it specifically says to hire and retain the recruitment services
So
of
the-
Clearwater.
Because this is the low bidder basically in the RFP process. And we voted to table the RFP candidates. What we've essentially done is just brought back one of the 3
That's right.
for consideration. So
That's
this is fulfilling the tabling.
There's no
motion, if you
one,
will.
there's no more RFP anymore process in it. This
Well,
is just
there
a
is, because it
resource
was
that we
tabled.
had.
It was tabled. So what's up for y'all tonight are
I'd like to see the
one
minutes of that to
candidate
make
out of
sure
the.
that's true. I'd like to see the minutes pertaining to that, if please, if I can.
Well,
Provide
we-
me the proof of
okay.
that,
If,
of
if
the
I,
tabling. No,
if
I
I
know.
may,
but I'd like to see it if you can. Provide to
that's-
me a copy.
And, and that's fine.
No,
but
you'll get it for me. I'm
For
asking
tonight,
you,
y'all
I'm
can-
instructing you to get it for me so I can see it, Mr. Perales, please.
if I
What's
may.
that? What's that?
On item 3.
Hold on, excuse me. Wait a minute. I have a conversation with Mr.
may I-
Perales because he's being a little bit insubordinate here. Now, what was your response, sir? Okay. Okay, so all I'm asking is politely, respectfully, could you please provide a copy of that for me? When will you do that? Yeah, so just get it for me, please. At your earliest convenience, first thing in the morning, maybe tomorrow morning. You get it for me in the morning, please.
There's no written minutes, right?
There is no written minutes
See what I'm
yet.
talking about?
Yeah, so again, we're going to table this again.
No, I'd like to,
Okay.
for the sake of
so
of
Councilman
time,
Lucia? Yes,
for the
go
sake
ahead.
of time and the sake of moving forward, it's gonna take the same amount of time if we pay $18,000 or we go through TML or the other agency. My motion is let's go through TML, the other agency. All that information is still gonna come back to us. All we're gonna have to do is sort it and move forward with it.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we can have our police department do whatever we have to and just for background checks or things of that nature. So let's stop wasting money. Let's move forward. We're going to get the same results. We're going to get the same applicants. So let's do it in-house. Let's move forward and let's get the ball rolling.
So you're saying the council to screen the applicants,
Yes,
the council to do the background checks on the applicants?
because we went with a lower price and that didn't work out for us.
I know.
So I'm very reluctant to pay $18,000 for that same service. So right now, my motion is if we cannot go with a lower bid than $18,000, then my motion is to go with TML and advertise publicly. And then we do.
So
what
you
we
have
can.
to, what you're doing is
Councilman Sellers, go ahead.
rejecting 4 and 5.
let's take them in order. So
Yeah.
4,
We're
the
still on
question
4.
is, do you want to approve or
Right.
or not?
Dis-
If you take no action, it's disapproved. If you want to affirmatively deny, we don't want this, that's fine too. But the question is, do you want to approve Clear Career Professionals for 18,000 to hire this, to identify candidates for city admin?
For the city.
If the goal is to, let's not do that, let's have TML do it, that would be a future agenda item,
Mhm.
right? Which is fine. You don't need a motion, in other words, to do that. This is the same thing we went through at 3, where the question is very narrow here.
Right.
Approve or disapprove
Mhm.
Clear Career Professionals.
Right.
If y'all want to do anything else, then it's limited to, let's.
Do you understand why?
Right.
We can't mention TMI.
You can, I mean, it's been
I mean,
registered that
no,
y'all want.
We're
that.
gonna disapprove. you
Right.
know, That we
Right.
can't recommend. We're
Right.
gonna- You have to disapprove.
Okay. So that's my motion.
So is that the
To-
motion?
to disapprove spending money when we can get the service for no cost.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Austin, sir, is that a valid motion?
Motion to disapprove Clear Career Professionals?
Yes. Or
Yes.
is that the motion that you made to disapprove?
Yes.
Again, this is optional. If you want to affirmatively say, we don't want this company to do this task, then that's fine. That's the motion.
I just want to clarify what the motion was.
To go with the service, with a public service, and not utilize city funds for a service that we can get from a Texas Municipal League or City Managers Association.
Mr.
And
Lucia.
that's the.
Or,
future agenda.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
okay, so,
Councilman
so
Lucia.
then right now is to just deny.
Yeah.
clear
Yeah,
channel.
there
Okay.
you go.
So the
That's what-
motion is to
that's
clear,
what
to deny clear channel
There you
or
go,
clear.
Councilman.
Okay.
You got it. That's it. That's what we were looking for. So do we have a second to that?
Yeah, I'll second that one.
Okay, now we'll call for some more discussion. So, Mr. Valverde, go ahead.
Say, I do second that, because I don't see spending $36,000.
Okay.
Especially in the way the budget is right now. So if we can get it on the outside, I'd rather do that. We can still perform background investigations. We have the capability of that. And we can always do some more research and pinpoint exactly what type of city administrator you want, like the resource that you provided for us, all this stuff. We can look at all that.
Okay, any other discussion? Councilman Burton?
I guess this is a Floyd question, believe it or not. Where would we pull the 18 grand from? General fund?
Professional services line in the general fund, yes.
Councilman Sellers, anything?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll just leave you guys with this, my colleagues, is that we're not in the professional employment recruitment services. And I didn't want the same mistake to be repeated that we've been repeating over and over and hiring the friend of the friend, somebody that knows somebody, you know, and we want an unbiased, in all respect, Mr. Desea, I'm just looking for an unbiased individual that's not like friends with the city attorney, you know, plays basketball with him. He was chosen by other people, you know, that was in, and you're getting people that are coming
And I
in.
think that was already a moot point. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
already
and
been-
so all I'm looking for is to get a professional recruitment agency once and for all,
Mhm.
to get a professional individual with no ties to the city at all. And somebody that can be, just start off new, and it's gonna have, you know, that's all I was looking for.
Point very well taken.
Okay,
The only comment that I want to make is we need to be aware of our spending. If I'm not mistaken, several years ago, we had a council, we had a mayor that we almost went broke because of the spending that continuously went on
who was that?
without control.
Who was that mayor?
Huh?
Who was the mayor you were referring to? Who did-
I think it was Johnny Rodriguez
Oh,
at the
really?
time. Yes.
the-
But right now I still have the floor. So I want to make sure that the spending we do is legitimate spending and that we're aware of what we're doing. I understand that we need professional services, but we need to live within our means. We have to work within our budget is my point.
Mayor, could we move on? and-
Yeah,
and
I'm
get a
just
roll
gonna,
call?
yeah, this is it. I'm just gonna say this last thing. This, you just totally exemplified. And I'm gonna be light with it, your incompetence. Because if you really know how things operate in a city, Mr. Lisea, and I was hoping we wouldn't have to do this, but you took a stab at it. So I'm gonna retort.
I'm just saying
Hold
that
on.
we need
know,
to
but you-
work within our budget. You
you made
keep
an
wanting to
accusation.
spend.
Okay,
It's not
hold
an
on.
accusation, it's a
Hold on.
fact.
Hold on, no,
Okay.
sir. Let me just,
Yeah.
let me close with this, sir.
So we make a motion
No,
to
no,
adjourn.
no, hold on. Hold on, you're not gonna make a motion to adjourn. Let me just close with this. And remember this, etch this in your memory, okay? The way the
You're-
law works, sir,
Is
is
is this related to the motion on the table?
No.
Because we have a motion and a second.
wait,
Then you
we
can
are in
definitely
discussion.
discuss it
And a
after the
motion to
You
meeting.
don't run
adjourn.
this meeting, sir.
And
I
a
do.
motion to adjourn.
You don't run this meeting.
After
I
the
do.
meeting, y'all can talk about
Stop.
whatever you want.
Stop what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, I don't need your input right now. Okay, I'm just gonna answer his question. His question is this. He is accusing me that I broke the city whenever in the city. The city council has the authority to spend funds for the city, not the mayor. The mayor does not spend anything. So that is an outright lie that you just said, and y'all keep repeating that, and your former mayor keeps repeating it. It's not true. I did not do anything to break the city because the council has the authority to spend money, not the mayor. Look what we're doing right now. You guys are making the decisions, not me.
Okay.
So that's an absolute lie.
Man.
And you need to quit slandering me like
And
that.
you
That's
don't,
not
you don't,
true.
you don't need to be pointing
So,
at lack of professionalism.
All right, well,
And
you
going
just gotta
back to
quit
your
lying.
comment, like you're saying, it is the council that makes the decisions. But the mayor insists on doing things that are costing us money. My thing is, like you
Okay,
said, the
Mr. Lisea.
council is responsible, then we are doing our due diligence to
Mr.
save
Lisea.
our money.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lisea. Thank you very much. So let's move on. So we have a second to the motion and we had discussion on it. So let's call a vote. Mr. Valverde.
Yay.
Okay, Mr. Sines.
Yeah.
Mr. Lisea. Mr. Sellers.
Yay.
Okay, Mr. Burton.
No.
Okay. So 1 nay and 4 yeas. Motion carries. Okay, so now let's move on very quickly with item number 5. I think that it's pretty clear what you want to do on that. So do we have a motion for discussion and action to approve the retention of clear career professionals to provide professional executive recruitment services for the recruitment and hire of a permanent city secretary? So do I need a motion on the floor as to what you're going to do on that, which pretty much no. So let's go ahead and call for a motion. Do we have a motion as to what you want to do with this item on the agenda?
I make a motion to disapprove.
Okay, Councilman Sellers made a motion to disapprove. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, Councilman Sines. All right, has made the second. Councilman Valverde, how do you vote?
Yay.
Councilman Sines,
No discussion.
you want to have discussion? Okay, so we have some discussion, Mr. Valverde, he wants to call.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Burton, go right ahead, sir.
I think this one is a little more comfortable for us to decide on. We've got a temporary right now that can slide in one of 2 temporaries. And we can do the TML or, I don't know if you have a city secretary association or
TMCA.
one of those to pull from and vet. So let's go that route because that's, I'm not saying less important
No.
but we've got a little bit more buffer room there. And let's just go that route.
Jack, I understand
Mayor.
what you're saying. Mayor,
Yes, go right ahead.
I have always been for promoting within and not hiring anybody, but I stand alone in that.
Okay,
Mayor, if I may.
yes, Councilman
So,
Sines, go right
yeah,
ahead.
Mr. Burton, so what this action item is to hire clear career professionals. So what we're saying is that we should use those other avenues, the city secretary association, going through TML, kind of similar thing. So that's why Mr. Sellers made the motion to deny using clear career professionals. So we could use those other avenues, but we need to do that according to the city attorney in a future agenda item.
Understand.
Okay, so yeah, that's why it was to disapprove and seconded. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We have a little bit more buffer
yeah, I agree with you on
to
that.
do that. And I just think we can take care of it pretty quickly.
Okay, so do we had a second to it or not?
I seconded.
Yes.
Okay,
we had a
thank
second.
Councilman Sines, and we call for discussion. Let's call the vote. Councilman Valverde,
Yay.
Councilman Sines,
Yeah,
Councilman Lisea,
Yay.
Councilman Sellers, Councilman Burton.
Yeah.
Okay, 5-0,
Mayor, if I may,
motion passes.
may I address Councilman Sellers?
Okay.
Councilman Sellers, I too am fully in support of bringing employees within and helping them flourish and get them to the next level.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move now to executive session, item number 6. So we're going to go ahead and discussion pursuant of 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding complaints filed against city and legal option on how to proceed.
Mayor, can we take a short break prior to that?
Yeah, I guess so. So let's go ahead. Time is 9:02 PM.
You're gonna have a recess first.
Let's have a recess before the executive session.
At recess at 9:02, then you'll need to do the executive session language at that.
That's
point.
correct. Okay. Okay, the time is 9:08 PM. We're back from our small break. We'll be going into executive session discussion pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding complaints filed against city and legal option on how to proceed. Okay, so staff needs to step out. It's 9:08 PM.